This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
No chance, so that's what you got.
Okay, good evening, Place to Be Nation. This is Will from Texas, and this is the final episode of For Your Consideration. We discuss the greatest WWE wrestlers of all time for the Place to Be Nation poll that we're running. And you can get your ballot in before New Year's Eve, right, JT?
Yeah, that's true. I was hoping for a better introduction than that, but it's okay. It's kind of a warm.
Dude, I'm sick. Shut up, man.
I was looking for something exciting. Like we haven't done a podcast forever.
That's our introduction, man.
Former podcast co-host, The Dangerous Alliance. I was going to do a whole bit about.
I'm going to introduce you, man. Everything tastes like phlegm right now. I'm not vomiting. This is a plus. We're good. We're keeping this.
New Year's Eve, right. December 31st, 11:59 p.m. is your cutoff time for your ballots.
Awesome. And so, just so you know, my good buddy from Rhode Island, my partner in crime, the Dangerous Alliance, my buddy JT Rozzero. JT, how are you doing?
Hey, Will. It's great to be back here on the Dangerous Alliance podcast, thankfully without Dan McGinn. It was, by the way, it came up in my Facebook memories. It was like just about a year ago, like around this week, that you were here, and made a worldwide TV at Boneheads and went on a tour of Providence and hung out and watched some wrestling. It seems like it was just yesterday, doesn't it?
That was awesome, man. That was a great trip. I loved hanging out with you and Scott and Dan, watching some classic wrestling and going to Boneheads. By far the best wings in America. Nothing else comes even close. So if you're ever in Rhode Island, make sure you stop by Boneheads. Mm-hmm. So absolute awesome experience, man. Loved it. And with you is your partner from the Making the Cut podcast, who's also running down wrestlers for this project, and that's Aaron George. Aaron, how you doing, buddy?
I am well, Will. I'm in Quebec. It's cold. My wife is pregnant, so she's always talking about Boneheads. Mm. It's a mess up here. It's just a bloody...
Wait, time out. You're not Canadian, are you?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, fuck. All right,
I'm sorry.
We're done. No,
Texans, we don't get along? Texans and Canadians?
Oh, man, Hart family versus Von Erichs, man.
I hate the Harts. I'm on your side.
All right, cool. You're an honorary Texan for now.
Except for Stu. Stu's my man, but that's it.
By the way, you're burying the lead that Aaron's wife is having sick cravings for Boneheads that she's pregnant because they've had it before. See?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, no, that's a plus, man. So your wife likes Boneheads and you're against Canada. So I'm good with you, man. We're good.
Yep. I'm a traitor.
Given that she's pregnant, she clearly likes to bone in wings, right?
Oh.
I'm setting the bar low for our fourth guy here. There's no
let's move
bad
on
jokes.
to someone else who makes tasteless jokes on podcast. That's my good buddy Steve Williams, my partner in crime here on most of these For Your Consideration shows. Steve, haven't talked in a while, man, but we're wrapping this series up, man. How are you doing?
I am good. I just want to point out that here in Kentucky, in the great fabled war of Texas versus Canada, we are playing the role of Switzerland, so I will do my best to be neutral today with you guys.
Thanks, man. Canadians appreciate that.
As an honorary Canadian, thanks to Stephen Graham and my appearance on the Royal Rumble, I will take that into consideration.
Does that show exist anymore? Hoping not.
His computer shit the bed like the day after we recorded that episode.
It's awesome.
That's insane. All right, guys. So, the way this works is we've gone over hundreds of wrestlers, well, maybe 100 wrestlers, and we don't have too many wrestlers left to talk about that were worth talking about. And so this is the main event episode. Definitely wanted to do this one to reunite the Dangerous Alliance. And, of course, Steve's been with me this entire time. And then JT, you and Aaron have been Making the Cut. So I thought it'd be really cool to kind of combine forces and, have all four of us talk about these superstars. And so let's jump right in. We're going to go with our first one here, JT. And that's the living legend, Bruno Sammartino, man. And so why don't you that was Larry Zbyszko's the living legend, right? Was Bruno the living legend too?
Yeah, he was, and then he beat him, and he took over the... Right? Isn't that why he started calling himself the living legend?
Yes, for
Man,
25 glorious years. That's right.
That's right. He's hiding in the
so-
bushes.
So old, man. I start doubting myself on my history, man. Like, only history teacher in America who's bad at history. Anyway,
Sure.
so JT, discuss Bruno and what do you think his strengths and weaknesses are, and where you think he'll end up on your list.
So I have my list. This has been Aaron and I's running joke as we've been doing these podcasts that I had never even approached my list. But I had multiple cross country flights recently, and I completed my list. I haven't submitted the ballot, but my list is pretty much complete. And I can tell you that Bruno is in my top 5. I think he excels at being a pro wrestler. I think that's his best strength. He is just an awesome pro wrestler. He connects with the crowd like very few others have. He was the perfect wrestler to wrestle in the New York territory at that time that he was there, the 60s and 70s. Italian fan base was very heavy. They really bought into him as a just kind of a hero to the masses. Awesome, I don't have quite House of Fire, but just awesome fiery offense, a guy that just came out of the gate. Everything about him was always so fired up. Like, he could just kind of pump his fist and the crowd would go nuts. And a surprisingly ball of energy for a guy that's kind of jacked up and just like more of a bulkier, stronger guy at most of the times in his career. But really, the energy he had and the cardio he must have had was incredible. Because he's a guy that could just go, go, go. Promo-wise, I think he was strong for the era. Like, stacking up against everyone overall, probably you may not think he's like great compared to some of the other guys we're going to talk about, but in his era, he's one of the strongest you'll see, and he didn't need to do much. He just needed to get out there with that accent, talk. He talked intelligently, he made sense, and he knew how to sell programs. He had some of the biggest programs in the company's history. Of course, an iconic title reign. I just don't think you can do a list like this without having him toward the top of your list. That's all.
No, there's some fair points, man. Aaron, what about you, buddy?
Yeah, I feel very similar. I mean, the thing that struck me is, I'd seen a bunch of Bruno matches before, but for this project, I basically got my hands on every 1970s, some late 60s and early 80s house shows I could and watched them. And, for as little as he did in the ring, it's crazy how over he was. Like, every single movement he did was economical. Everything mattered. And his hair is spectacularly slicked. Like, I don't know if there's a better hair slick in wrestling than Bruno Sammartino.
He's classic old Italian man hair slick.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, I bet he smells like a minty fresh
mint.
Ricard
Yes,
Noir.
I was gonna say mint. Yes, mint.
Right?
Yep, mint.
Right? Like I could imagine him at his house using a rope as a belt, and there's a lot of things about him. I built a whole backstory about him. His grandmother probably fed him, but no, he's one of those guys. When I was watching it and looking at it, like it's hard to rate his matches because it's just such a different style. But he's so effective that it's impossible to look at him as anything other than top 5.
And a great brawler too. Like I meant to mention that as well.
Yeah, but almost entirely a brawler though for that.
But he really excels at the brawling part of his matches. Like, he's a brawler with his strikes and stuff, but like when it gets to like being like that Sparrow Sarion match, like where it's like a real bloody brawl, like a hate-filled brawl. You know what I mean? Like he's really freaking good at that. And one match I just want to throw out is that tag match. I was talking to you about it, Aaron, last night in '86 with him and Tito against Adonis and Savage in the cage. That's
great match.
The extreme twilight of his career, and he's just out there killing it. He could have had it, he probably could have gone into like the '90s, like with a regular run in the WWF. That's how hot and over and how good he still was.
No, I don't even dispute any of that, man. What about you, Steve?
He's a little bit of a blind spot for me. I'd initially had Bruno as number 1 on my rough draft of my list, just for historical perspective. He was the guy that literally the company's back was built on as far as the WWF goes. I don't know much about the wrestling history in that area prior to 1963, but he definitely fit the strong guy template. I don't know if he is the one who it was created around, but the Bruno Sammartino archetype was pretty much the template for a main event guy all the way through the 90s until the steroid scandal, and they had to start building around Bret Hart around 92, 93. The Bruno Sammartino big strong man superhero type was the guy, for better or worse, that the Northeast Wrestling was built around. Something that always struck me as very unique was apparently when he lost the title to Ivan Koloff in 1971, the legend is that the arena just went completely damn near silent. That just, that says a lot to just how much he meant, to where it seemed like the guy would literally never lose, to the point where when it happened, it was like this otherworldly happening. My real only exposure to Bruno is the Zbyszko match that led to the turn where he pretty much sunned Larry for 5 or 10 minutes. And then the 86 matches with Piper and Savage, with Piper putting the fucking posters on the cage and whatnot. That was more about Piper being awesome than Bruno. So he's probably going to be top 10 for me, just on historical perspective alone.
All right. Well, I got him at 21. And here's my deal. And
Animal.
No. I mean, here's the deal, man. Like, for me, I have to be emotionally invested in somebody, and I love watching old matches. I love watching old matches with Bruno in them. But if somebody tells me, hey, there's this great Bruno Sammartino match you have to check out, I'm going to check it out. But I'm not actively going to seek out Bruno Sammartino matches, because there's just that disconnect where I have to see more Bruno. Like when the Titans told me, you have to watch the entire Bruno versus Larry feud, I was all in, and I saw it, and it was awesome. And that's why he's as high as he is for me, because, man, I'll put somebody in my top 50 just for a great feud alone. Add in all the living legend stuff and the title reigns and all that crap, and yeah, he's definitely high up there for me. But I just don't have an emotional connection with the guy. Having said that, I recognize it. It's just everybody in my top 10 is somebody that I actively look for new matches from, or I think that the matches I've seen are just so great that they're going to be in my top 10. So that's where I have them. I know the way I'm ranking wrestlers is different than a lot of people, but I'm okay with that. Like, I'm very comfortable with that. So I have them lower than you guys do, but a couple of guys later on our list we're going to talk about, I'm going to have much lower than you guys do too, also, for slightly different reasons, but still the general spirit is still there. I have to have an emotional connection to a guy, a personal reason to want to watch him, and I just don't have that with Bruno. And that goes into our next wrestler who actually beat Bruno for the title, and that's Superstar Billy Graham. And I'll just tell you, this guy's not making my list. I don't like his matches. I don't like watching him, and I don't want to see more Billy Graham matches. Someone says, hey, one of your favorite wrestlers had a great match with Billy Graham, I'll watch it, but I will never actively seek out a Billy Graham match on my own, ever. With that said, Aaron, what's your take on the Superstar?
Well, for me, I mean, I think we're looking at things I tend to look at things a little bit differently than you in terms of how much importance I put on their individual matches. Because you're right. I don't love Superstar Billy Graham's matches. However, I do think he's an important enough figure and was entertaining enough as a general package to rank. I probably have him about somewhere in the top 50 of my list. And not only was he important at the time and effective at the time, but I think he's also one of the more influential wrestlers on our list. And I know that's not necessarily a category in our NJPW system, but I think it definitely fits somewhere nicely in intangibles that Superstar Billy Graham really is the spiritual successor. The spiritual. Well, Hulk Hogan is more of the spiritual successor to Billy Graham, and I think that's important, and that plays a role. And lots of guys come out and talk about how important he was to their career and stuff like that. And when you look at his promos were great for the time. I just thought he really worked as a character. I find his selling completely ridiculous, but I also love it in a way because it looks like he's just getting murdered every single match.
That's funny.
He flip-flopped around the ring he's dying, and his facial expressions he's screaming Norman Smiley 20 years earlier, except he's the world champion. So I don't know, for me, he's important enough historically to rank high, which is something that's important for me. I didn't think his matches were dog shit or anything, but I also haven't seen every single match of his. Like I said, I researched what I could with the house shows, but I enjoyed his run. I enjoyed his promos. His influence is important. So I got Billy Graham somewhat high.
Nice. What about you, Steve?
I was thinking top 50-ish, just based on influential status alone. Dusty, very similar. Hogan obviously aped pretty much his entire act. But, with Chad and Parv, they have their worst performer on every show is the Billy Graham Award, for a reason. A lot of these guys' matches sucked, especially after he went away and came back as bald kung fu cirrhosis Billy Graham. Just dog shit, awful matches. I liked the series with Dusty, the bull rope match. I thought was a lot of fun. But anything after 1979 with him is just fucking atrocious. Except 50-ish just based on influence alone. But personally, I don't think very highly of him at all.
Oh, that's awesome. Hey, just a side note, man. The thing I love about Billy Graham when I was a kid, when he was bald and had like the goatee, was that if you ever like drew wrestlers when you were in like elementary school, he was super easy to draw because he was bald. You just had to put the goatee on, and he had those little beady eyes, so you didn't have to worry about it. Anyway, this is something I wanted to bring up. JT, Billy Graham.
Great preacher. No. So yeah, I have him just outside the 50, like right around the low 50s, basically. So I think pretty much in line with Aaron and Steve. And yeah, I mean, he's a guy that, Stevie mentioned like, Chad and Parv, who you can't take them seriously, but they they have him obviously as a paragon for like the worst wrestler of the show. But I mean, they're talking NWA Billy Graham, which is dog shit, like you said. And his comeback, drug addled, which if you listen to the later era Titans of Wrestling, you'll hear all about, just the coked out, pilled up, whatever he was, Billy Graham with the bald head. But, to me, that it depends on how you kind of look at these guys. Like, Aaron and I have debated this quite a bit on making the cut. Like, how much you punish guys for their late career work, like where they're just kind of hanging on. And, does that count severely against what they did for the bulk of their career? And I think for the bulk of his career, he was a top guy in the promotion. The guy, obviously, they trusted to be a heel champion during a time where they didn't have long-term heel champions. His win, when he wins the title is a really cool moment. And yeah, the mini feud with Dusty Rhodes is great. And I think what carries him for me is just his promo ability. I mean, just one of the best talkers they've ever had, especially of that era. A guy that was completely ahead of his time. I know it's easy and sometimes lazy to say it. Like, I'll just like hear about like Bad News Brown all the fucking time. Like, this guy, is 10 years too early. But Billy Graham literally was like, probably 10 to 12 years too soon when he was in his prime, because he's a guy that just was so different than anyone else that it kind of took you time to adjust. And yeah, I mean, Hulk Hogan is clearly the evolutionary Billy Graham. He was the Billy Graham that could work. But I think Aaron made a great point about his bumping and his selling. I thought were pretty good for a big jacked up heel. And just his presence alone. Like, to me, we have the N, nuance, right? Is that N? Nuance.
Yeah. Nuance starts with that.
Yeah, that's it. He's got a lot of that. He's got a lot of nuance. No, but his intangibles are so high. Like, again, another guy that connects well with the crowd. And to me, my final point on him is the 70s WWF is not the most exciting period of the company's history. When you look at some of the matches and guys that are rolling out there's a lot of just quiet, long-ish blah matches, and he's a guy that was able to wake the crowd up and stand out and be different during a time where the product wasn't really at its best. So to me, that counts for something. You could probably talk me into dropping him a bit. I'm kind of with you, Will, where he's not like a favorite of mine, but I think he's certainly, when you look at a list of greatest WWF wrestlers of all time, I mean, I think it's hard to keep him out of the 100.
Yeah, well, I mean, I have him out of the 100, and here's my deal, man. I understand the influence he had on guys like Hogan or whatever, but instead of saying Hogan, I would say Ventura. But, like, when it comes to talking, I would say Jesse Ventura does everything on the mic better than Superstar Graham, for his time and even before that. And I would argue that they're equivalent in the ring.
I think
whereas Hogan
is
really high on my list because he's such a great wrestler. And when I look at the 70s, man, I'm gonna disagree with you guys. The 70s were like the era of like the great Muhammad Ali promos, So it wasn't like people weren't like making themselves known and standing out, even like in the sports world, with great promos. Muhammad Ali was doing it. Dusty was doing it.
But there weren't those characters in the WWF.
Yeah, but I'm not going to put him on my list just because he was surrounded by shit. Like, he was a flamboyant piece of shit surrounded by brown shit. You know, it's not going to happen.
Tell us what you really think of him, please.
Well, I'm telling you, I mean, really. And so it just, and then add, like I said, man, when the highest compliment I can give him is, hey, he was easy to draw when I was in elementary school, man. He's off the list. There's no way,
Yeah, but
I mean,
so when One Man Gang and Butch Reed beat the shit out of him, you must have been like pumping your fist.
well, here's the thing, right? Is that like Butch Reed? I just remember like Mid-South Butch Reed and One Man Gang in Texas, and I was so depressed watching them in WWF. It was just so sad, man. And then when One Man Gang became a key, man, I was just died, man. I was so hurt.
That's when he got good.
Yeah, he went back to his roots.
Great in Texas, man. He was a great wrestler.
He got good when he became Akeem.
And UWF, man, he had awesome matches in UWF.
But he didn't dance as well.
True.
He absolutely. He was a horrible dancer. That wasn't even a good dancer.
Oh, please, sir. No, we're going to have words now. You're going to argue that Akeem is a horrible dancer.
I'm going to say that if that might pass for like good Canadian dancing, man. But that's all I'm going to say. Okay.
Look, if you want to dance Canadian, you better have at least 2 spoons in your hand that you're clicking together.
That's what there is.
Sounds Portuguese.
Hey, side note, man. I tried listening to the Tragically Hip. I couldn't do it, man. I tapped out.
I don't like the Tragically Hip either.
All right, cool. Well, that's good, man. We're sharing. No, I do like whatever and Triumph. But whatever, I'm getting sidetracked. So anyway, that's what I think of Graham. But we've mentioned this name already, and this is Hulk Hogan, and he's our next main eventer that we're going to talk about. Steve, you mentioned that Hogan took Graham's entire gimmick and ran with it. I'm just going to say this, man. I think Hulk Hogan is 10,000 times more charismatic than Graham. I think he was a better talker than Graham. Definitely a much better wrestler, man. I think it belittles Hulk Hogan to give Superstar Graham that much credit for Hulk Hogan. Having said that, what do you think of Hogan, Steve?
I think, he's better, definitely. He has the advantage of taking the Superstar Graham template and adding cocaine to that formula.
Instead of pills,
just going ape shit. Plus, obviously the MTV connection, being around at a time when cable TV was exploding, and really a culture where he was, bigger, badder, better, and everything in entertainment and pop culture was just blown up to the nth degree in the 1980s. Hogan was definitely the right guy at the right time. Add the manipulation onto that he's known for, and it's no wonder he just blew up like he did. I'm a big Hogan guy, at least until the old tape skis leaked a couple years back and we found out his personal opinions. But as far as the 80s, I mean, he's without a doubt just the driving force behind that company, made more money than anybody. Highlights for him, obviously the Andre match at WrestleMania 3, which Big Melts gave -5 stars, but he can kick rocks for that. That's a damn masterpiece if I've ever seen one.
Really, that's your insult, kick rocks? Like, what's he going to do, stub a toe on a rock? Come on, man.
Hey, I've already said the F word twice. I'm trying to check myself.
Just so you know, there's no swear jar on this show.
Yeah,
no
fuck you.
My personal favorite Hogan matches are the Savage match at Mania in '89 and then the Warrior match at WrestleMania 6. I mentioned this on a previous podcast that I'll probably watch that Warrior match about once a year, Mania season. Just 2 big, larger-than-life guys. Just in 8-year-old Steve's eyes, it was the best thing that could have happened. Then again in 2002, man, he came back, he laid down for The Rock, had a great moment in the Sky Dome, and then actually he did business for months. He jobbed to Kurt Angle. He had the short-lived tag team with Edge. I mean, he did a lot of good stuff in 2002, 2003. As far as his lowlights, obviously the post-Arsenio Hall era Hogan, 92 to 93 in WWF, was just – he looked like a deflated balloon. The matches sucked. The fans didn't give a shit anymore. Like, nothing about it was good. That being said, I think it would be foolish not to put him top 10 in a list of the best WWE match guys of all time.
Steve, what years did you say? What years did you say no one cared, and he sucked?
That 92 to 93.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I'd say anything post anything post the Slaughter feud is where it pretty much went to shit.
Well, I'm going to have a different take on that, and that is, one, anything that involves him wearing a Roman helmet is horrible. Okay, just saying. But actually, I would say anything after that Savage feud was really rough, except for the Slaughter and like Earthquake feuds of '90. Like Hogan.
Well, that's pretty much it. That and Warrior. That's everything.
Yeah. Well, but even then, like Hogan had been running so fast for so long, carrying that company.
Those are his words.
What's that?
Like he's described it as exactly that, like a million times.
Brother, he was working
his words.
Yeah, like running fast and hard,
So hope
brother.
you don't use any of his other words.
Oh, man. I probably stole it directly from Hogan, man. Like just subconsciously. Like I wouldn't even like, I'm not original or anything. So, so when it comes to Hogan, my biggest thing is watch Hogan from like '84 through '86. Amazing wrestling matches, and I think it peaked with like his bloodbath with Kamala, like by far the best Kamala match I've ever seen in that feud. And I always bring this up, where just as a kid getting Pro Wrestling Illustrated with Kamala on the cover and Hogan's head on a spike, this bloody head. It was just amazing at the time. And watching that feud years later saying, oh my God, these guys had a really great feud that was really great in ring as well. And so, but that whole early run, 84 to 86, man, Hogan was awesome. Like, I just thought he was an actively great wrestler. Add the Sergeant Slaughter stuff, the Earthquake stuff, the Savage feud. And I don't have Hogan top 10 because every time Hogan was in a position of power or championship run or whatever, I never had a personal connection to him. Like, there was always someone else. It was Ricky Steamboat. It was Randy Savage. When it was the NWO guys, it was Mysterio and the Vanilla Midgets and those guys. So I've never, like, gone to a wrestling show to watch Hulk Hogan, ever, for whatever wrestling shows I've been to. And so to me, that kind of knocked him out top 10, because for as much great stuff as he's had, he's also been in some really dog shit matches. This cringy, nasty, ugly, this is embarrassing to watch matches. And so I had to knock him out of the top 10 for that. But man, his peak is really great. And so I have him at number 14, one space right below Mark Henry. So, how to do that. So anyway, having said that, let's go to you, JT. Sorry, man, I forgot your name.
Hey, Will, you can submit your list on January 2nd. We'll definitely count it. Don't worry.
Down there, motherfucker. I want to sit it after the show's done.
Hogan, I got him top 3. I'll leave a little suspense as to where, but he, he's still Hogan, obviously. I've definitely gained an appreciation more for that era you've talked about, Will, with Scott and I rebooting the podcast and going back to that era, like watching a lot of these house show matches. The 85 feud with Savage, the 3-match run they have at MSG is awesome. The Kamala matches are really, really good. He has fun matches across the...
Not good. Awesome.
Awesome. Okay. They're awesome. He's got random matches across the board with all kinds of guys that are a lot of fun. Harley Race, Don Morocco, just like all throwaways here and there. Orndorff, yep. WrestleMania 1, obviously for what it meant across the board, but just, he's in there with Mr. T, who's a mega star at that point, and there's all kinds of stars there, and he stands out like, head and shoulders above some of the biggest stars in the world at WrestleMania 1. It just shows you how big and how prolific he was. And if you look at his WrestleMania track record, it's all pretty good until that 92 stretch, like Steve mentioned. Like, he has big time moments in matches. Like, if you look at our criteria, jump up moments. I mean, who's got more than Hogan? I mean, there might be one or two, but not many. Hogan's got a ton of those. I think he's a great worker. I think he was a great worker until close to the end. I agree with Steve. I think it wasn't until after the Slaughter feud where he deteriorated. But then he recaptured some of the magic when he came back. Like, I think he actually gets boosted by that comeback run, which is funny. You wouldn't think so because of how awful he was toward the end of WCW, but he definitely gets rejuvenated in his matches with Rock. With Rock, with Vince,
Jericho,
Shawn, Jericho, Angle, Brock, like all that stuff added to his legend. I mean, those are big matches he had.
Really good tag wrestler,
right?
Wasn't it him and Edge who were tagging at that time?
Yep, fun stuff with that. And then even back when he was with the Mega Powers, good tag wrestler there too. Yeah. I mean, to me, he's almost underrated at this point as a worker by some. Yes, he got very formulaic post like 88, but you know what? Like you said, he was going fast and hard week after week, day after day. After a while, he needed to just get into a rhythm of, okay, let me sell for 8 minutes to make the hot comeback and hit the leg drop and get out of here. But there was that 3 or 4 year stretch from 84 to like 88 where he was really busting his ass in those matches. He has so many like fast-paced sprint brawls at MSG. It's crazy. Like I'm talking like 9 minutes of just mayhem. Yeah, and of course, all-time promo. I mean, no doubt there. Even if half the time you didn't know what the fuck he was saying. He was charismatic. He connected with the crowd. He's an all-time great. I mean, probably don't have to go this deep on Hogan, but to me, he's a top 3.
No, you should go there. I mean, man, he's like in the Mount Rushmore of wrestling, right?
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. Well, okay, and I'm sorry. Steve?
Aaron.
Oh, wait, you started Hogan. I'm sorry, Aaron. My bad, man. I'm sick. Hey, just disclaimer, I'm sick, man. Throw me a bone here. Shut up.
Full of mucus. We got it.
Bone in.
Yeah. Awesome.
Boneheads. Pregnant wife. So, look, I had him at number 2, and the more JT and I talk, the more he's probably going to end up number 1, I think, on my list. I would argue he's the most charismatic wrestler they've ever had, the most over wrestler they've ever had. I'll echo everything you guys are saying about him being a great worker. I would even argue that his matches I would argue that his match with Andre, and Steve kind of touched on this, but I actually think it's perfect. Like I don't get the shitting on that match because like Hogan and Andre don't need to be doing moonsaults to have a great match. Like they do exactly what they need. And
Hogan wrestles a dumb match. Listen to the latest Place to Be podcast, WrestleMania 3. His psychology is stupid in that match. Go ahead.
So my take on it is that like if the purpose of a wrestling match and an angle is to get people emotionally involved, then I don't know. I think there's an argument to be made that WrestleMania 3 match can be listed as one of the greatest matches of all time because every single movement in that match elicits gasps and cheers and the audience is legitimately scared of him losing to Andre the Giant, which is brilliant. You know, it's just a brilliant little storyline. And I don't think anybody today, and I don't even know if even some of the other guys we're going to talk about, none of their matches have the mystique that Hogan matches had. None of them have the same level of mystique as Hogan Andre. None of them have the same level of mystique.
Is that their fault, though? Isn't that a product of the times and the way they shaped the promotion?
It may be, and it may be, but I'll argue, too, that none of them are as over as Hogan.
Well, let me interject real here. Aaron, just let me ask real quick. How old are you?
I'm 37.
All right, cool. You're not too far off. Like, continue to your point. I want to address that in a second.
No, you're about to be like,
he's going to age shame you momentarily. Go ahead, continue.
Yeah, I know, right? It was coming. Had I said anything under 25, I was dead.
Yeah. You were dead in the water, dude. To me, you were dead. Yeah, like,
I'm already dead to you. I'm Canadian. I love the Hearts. Fuck you. No.
Oh, you hurt.
No. What was I saying? I was just saying that, like, you're right. Like, it's a product of the system, sure, but it still happened. Like, it still happened. And I mean, I would say Austin had the chance to have that same mystique, but I don't know if any of his matches ever got to that same level of mystique as, say, Hogan Warrior or Hogan Andre. And I don't know if the fans were as emotionally invested as in guys like that as they were in Hogan. Like, it was. Look off to the distance and the crowd would just go ballistic. And even as far as in 03, like his match with Vince, not only is I think it's a really fun match for what it is and some of the best camera shots in company history. That's not him, but it's part of it. But just that has such emotional depth to it too. Like if you watch that video package before and then watch that match, like Hogan really does a great job of selling the emotion in that. And I mean, on top of all that, on top of all his great accomplishments and who he is, I know you're upset. On top of all of that, he's probably the most important wrestler of all time. And without him, the company wouldn't be anywhere near the same what it is today. So I think for me, it's an easy case for top 3, easy, and then it becomes where. And for me, I keep seeming to put him a bit higher every time. So deconstruct it, Will.
Well, I mean, guys, you make some great arguments for Hogan. He's still number 14 because I had to look, and because of his rant on private video that became public, I had to look at the first black wrestler on my list and then put him one wrestler below that guy. And that was Mark Henry at 13. So Hogan was one wrestler below him in protest. So that's why he ends up at 14. Because I have a very serious system when it comes to ranking these guys. And that was the deciding factor.
Now, could you imagine 2011 Mark Henry against 1986 Hulk Hogan?
Yeah.
It would have been fucking majestic. Maybe the greatest match of all time. And I say that with zero hyperbole, man. That might have been the greatest thing. Hall of freaking Pain Mark Henry versus Eye of the Tiger Hulk Hogan. Are you kidding me? Dude, that would have been amazing because it would have been a bloodbath. Mark Henry would have taken crazy bumps. They
talking cash shit the whole time. Hogan's selling like he's dead.
Dude, Mark Henry would have given Mean Gene a fake heart attack as Mean Gene was like interviewing him. Dude, it would have been some of the best stuff of all time. Seriously,
Jesse would have been like screaming for Mark Henry.
Oh hell yeah! So,
I hadn't even factored Jesse into that equation. Holy shit, I'm booking that right now. Turn on the PlayStation. We're doing this.
Awesome. Well, so guys, Aaron, JT, you already talked about this guy on one of your previous podcasts, making the cut. And that's the Undertaker. But to me, he's a very important figure in WWE history, legend, Hall of Famer, all that bullshit. Anyway, but having said that, I have him at number 51, man. And here's my problem with the Undertaker. I've never been emotionally invested in this guy. 0 times. 0. I've never liked this guy as somebody that I want to watch wrestle. And it's weird because, like, when he was the dead man, I had already stopped watching wrestling when he debuted in the WWF. When I got back into wrestling during the Attitude Era, he was part of, like, that corporate ministry stuff. I mean, he was having decent matches with Bret and Austin and stuff, but I just didn't care about him. I was watching for Bret and Austin and guys like that. I wasn't watching for The Undertaker. To me, he was a holdover from the cartoon era. When he became the American Badass, I gave absolutely 0 shits about him. And then when he reinvented himself as the dead man, I didn't really care. Having said that, my dilemma with Undertaker, he's the one guy where you could say he might have the best match on the show, but easily have the worst match on the same show with the exact same opponent. To me, that's why I put him right in the middle of that list. That's why I didn't put him in like the top 20 or 30, because for every great moment with The Undertaker, there's an absolute dog shit moment. There's a cringeworthy moment. And I just couldn't justify putting him above some of my favorite wrestlers or wrestlers who were so much more consistent in the ring year after year than him, or wrestlers that I had personal emotional connections to. So I have him right in the middle of the list. I know it's probably going to be an unpopular opinion, but I'm okay with it, man. You know, he did a lot better than Kane on my list, so I'll give him that. So having said that, JT, what's your take on the Taker?
Yeah, so Aaron and I did cover him on one of our Making the Cut, so I point you to that. I think we talked for a while on him, too. I have him right around, like, 20-ish in there. I've seen some people talk about him being, like, the very top, and I just can't see that, mainly crazy because of what you're talking about. Yeah, well, it was all the crap. But I do think the last however many years of his career really helped him a lot. However you want to say, last 5 or 6. I mean, because he piled on a bunch of really great matches and moments on top of that. I think if he's someone that would have retired in like 2003, say he retires, say he comes back like WrestleMania 20 as a dead man and then kind of tapers off. I think we're looking at him being even a little bit lower, but his renaissance from like 2005 on really pumps him back up and adds a lot of good on there. And yeah, he's got a lot of bad too, but you can't discount his presence, his character, his connection. I'm not going to say what he meant to the WWF because yes, he's kind of like an iconic WWF guy because he was around forever. I don't think much changes if he never shows up. I'll put it that way. So I can't put him in that like really iconic top. Like to me, for the top 4 or 5, you'd be a guy that the company would have been significantly worse off if you didn't exist. Like Hulk Hogan, Steve Austin, John Cena. Like those guys, to me, the company would be much worse off if they didn't exist. Whereas the Undertaker, whatever. But to me, he's got enough good stuff. He's a memorable, and I do factor in like character-wise, like how memorable and well-known and kind of how they cross over and just what they become, because that's part of what WWF is, right? They wanted larger-than-life characters that connected in and out of the business, and Undertaker is one of the biggest in that realm. And again, he's got enough great matches and great moments to buoy him up. So not an elite. I don't have him in the elite group. I don't have him in the next tier. He's like the head of the third tier for me, and that's right around 20.
Okay. I mean, that's fair. I disagree with you, but that's fair.
Well, I use logic. You just say, I don't like him. I'm going to put it at 15.
I use logic, too. I told you. I used math. For every great match, there's an equally shitty match. That's math.
You didn't sit there and add up all his great matches and shitty matches. You're just guessing. It's guesswork. I want to see the work. I want to see the work laid out. I want to see all the good and the bad matches. +1, -1, +1, -1.
And in fairness, matches are one category of 4, though, too.
Right. So you're going to take that, divide it by 4, and then you got to factor in every great promo for every bad promo.
Let's look at those categories. All right. Promo work. Not a great promo.
Promo counts.
Shut the fuck up.
Promo is character, though, right? If you give Kamala props for being a character, you have to give Undertaker props for being a character.
I didn't give Kamala props for being a character, did I? I probably did. But let's be fair, man. Like
he connected with Kamala, goddammit.
I did. Not only did I connect with Kamala at a very old age when I was at my fattest, but he made that crazy song that talks about like Steve Lombardi like having sex with Pat Patterson. Like that was the most insane thing I've ever heard in my life, man. Anyway, having said that, but no, I mean, so promos like zero investment. Like I said, and this is where I was asking about the age, Aaron. It's just like when it comes to the Undertaker. All right, I just didn't care about the dead man. To me, I was in high school when that stuff happened, man. It was cartoon crap. Like, I grew up on like bloody NWA and UWF stuff, man. And then you're throwing out cartoon characters at me. It just killed it for me. I couldn't respect any of that stuff.
But he's only that version of the Undertaker for like 4 years. You know what I mean? The rest of it is not that at all.
Yeah, they ground him.
I would say
they ground him
90
in
to
reality.
96, man. I mean,
no. By like 94, 95, he was already coming out of it.
No, because everything still revolved around the urn and Paul Bearer, who just annoyed the fuck out of me. It's like it still was annoying to me. And then when he became darker, then it was that corporate ministry Vince Russo bullshit. So it's like you could even argue that for every great angle or program he was a part of, he had an equally horrible program.
Do the math.
Yeah, we're talking math here.
You should have been a math teacher. Forget history, Will.
Very serious scientific method going on in my head, man. And that's where I'm at. And so anyway, Aaron, what were you going to interject, man?
Well,
Faker's not Canadian, so you can't use that. He's Texan.
Oh yeah, he's Texan. We love the Texans in Canada, though. Yeah. So here's the thing. I'll let you in on something. I hate the Undertaker. For like most of his career, I just could not. I'm with you. I could not care less about him. I was bored to shit by a lot of his stuff. It just didn't work for me, like the whole thing. And I started liking him a bit towards the end, before like the last, I would say like some of his big WrestleMania matches. But I don't see any way objectively that I could look at him, despite not liking him, and not put him somewhere around the top 20. Like it doesn't make sense. Now it all depends on how much you weigh bad versus good. Like I tend to not
very objective.
I tend to not weigh the bad as heavily as the good, because the good in general makes you feel a lot better than the bad makes you feel worse.
Well, I don't know about that.
But I mean, like, there's a sense of elation when wrestling clicks, right? Like, it lets you buy in and stuff like that. Like, it's all positive. Like, it's a positive thing. I find when Undertaker doesn't click, it doesn't elicit the opposite of that, which is like anger and hatred. It elicits boredom more than anything else. Now, that's unforgivable on some level too. But like, if you look at the categories, like his N category, he kills it. Like, he's arguably one of their better character guys. Like, he was there forever. He worked well as both the heel and the face. He was legit scary when he started. Maybe not to you because you're a bit older, but like to children in the audience. Like, you could watch those shows back and And there were children like scared and crying. And he had an aura about him that like so many other guys didn't have. And then, I mean, we've already gone through his laundry list of great things, and he does have bad things too. And I think for me, the bad things are why, like, I wouldn't put him top 10. And they're the reason that I don't think he should be number one. I've heard arguments that he could be number one. And I think that because he has so much bad stuff, it disqualifies him. Like when we talked about the promo though, like we talked a lot about like how it's not just what they say, it's how they play their character. And I mean, he is a great character in a lot of ways. He brought us some boredom, but you know, he's super memorable and was super over during that. Like in the 90s where we hated him, he was arguably one of the most over guys in the roster the whole time. Now, popular doesn't necessarily mean great, but it does count for something.
Yeah, well, hold on. When you say over, you mean like where everybody in the audience is so scared that they're silent for most of the match? I agree.
That is not what happened. Like,
oh, okay.
Even watching that stupid Royal Rumble 94 match, like, and until 50 guys are in the ring, they're going crazy for everything.
I was there. I can vouch for it.
Yeah, like, and that's one of his.
But see, I would counterpoint a match I actually like, which was him versus Vader in '97 at the Royal Rumble, and they wrestled to silence, man. 60,000 people silence.
But you have to factor in the stadium there, like in that stadium, everything that night sounded silent.
Yeah, even Austin.
Maybe.
Yeah, like the whole thing did, and even Michaels, it was his hometown. I don't think that's necessarily a fair moment. I also think too, though, that's also a point where they're taking him and putting him in a mid-card feud, and everyone else feels more important than him at that point. You know, so I just think objectively, like for me anyway, and everybody has kind of a different view of what that is, but like I couldn't put him top 10. But he's ahead of some guys that I'm sure are probably way higher on your list because
absolutely.
Yeah, like his importance to the company, he's so memorable, and he does like I'll always value a 5-star match way more than I'll deduct for a dud. Like it's just to me that those are just so much more valuable. And when you're getting someone into wrestling, those are the things you show them. Like, and I think those count for something on that list.
Okay, and I'm not even going to argue with that, man, because I'm sick. But okay, what was I going to say, JT?
You are sick. But I was going to say that Aaron makes a good point that I agree with on not counting the bad as much as the good, because the way WWE is structured with so much TV and so much airtime and so much everything else and day after day and day, I mean, anyone who's around for any amount of time is going to compile crap. Like, that's just the way their TV and everything else is structured, that you're going to have a million matches, and most of them are probably going to be pretty pedantic. But to me, that's where the guys move up the list, is how much above that baseline of garbage do they have to rise above. And to me, this Undertaker just has a lot of it. He has more garbage than most because he's been around, and you know, we've talked about compilers that have just been around forever, that it's just the nature. You're not going to have great matches every fucking time because of the structure of the company. It's just not what it is. You know, it's not like a super indie where the goal is to go out there and have a 5-star match every month at the Armory, you know, or whatever. So to me, it's hard to punish on this list heavily for guys that have a bunch of crap. Now, if you have a bunch of shit in big-time spots, you're continuously giving the ball and crap out, like a guy with 3 letters in his name. You know, that stands out a little bit more. But I think Undertaker...
Or a guy with 4 letters in his name related to Undertaker, sure.
Right, yeah, exactly. And he's significantly... he's borderline for me. You know, he doesn't have the heights that Taker has. So that's just my stance on what Aaron said. I just wanted to extrapolate on that.
Yeah, and if I could just jump in one sec, too, like, you also kind of have... I mean, I don't want to excuse him, but, like, he's probably had, the worst opponents of anyone on our list. Like, he had large stretches with Giant Gonzalez and with Yokozuna. People really like Yokozuna, but I don't really think their matches clicked that well. He had to wrestle
Yokozuna was an amazing wrestler around that time. If he didn't have good matches with Yokozuna at that time, that's not excusable.
I just don't think they clicked. Like, I think Yokozuna needed a particular guy to click with. Like, he clicked really well with Bret, right? So,
and
like,
1, 2, 3 Kid and multiple, and
again,
Earthquake.
But when I didn't like the Earthquake stuff, but when Undertaker was put in with good workers, for the most part, I mean, there are some duds. For the most part, he rose to the occasion at least.
Yeah, no, I agree. He could be carried. No, I'm absolutely not disputing that. You know. I'm with you on there. Yeah. Let's get back to this. But before we move on, let's Steve, Undertaker.
Man, I think it is a generational thing. You're a little older than us. I'm 35 years old. And that would have put me at about 9 years old during Taker's first year with the company. And he
Right.
just scared the shit out of me consistently. He locked the Ultimate Warrior in the casket. That was the first time I remember watching wrestling and running around to other kids in the neighborhood and just actively being like, hey, man, did you see that the Ultimate Warrior was murdered this morning on Superstars?
Oh, that's hilarious.
And then a similar incident where Jake the Snake had slammed the casket on Taker's hand. And I just thought for sure that hand was broken, even though the casket clearly couldn't have weighed more than 30 pounds. He's moving it around with his wrist. But, back then I didn't understand that. But when you hit from the Kamala matches in 92, like all the way until he wrestled Mankind in 96, like it's all dog shit. Just this long stretch of very little good with him. I think he's going to rank higher among people a bit younger than us just because they didn't see any of that. And a lot of those people are less likely to go back and watch footage or even get the, having lived through a perspective, because nowadays Undertaker is pushed as this end-all be-all legend. But for a long stretch in the 90s, he was just piss poor with his matches. I'm probably going to have him 20s to 30s. Again, I think a fair way to look at this is he's been through many eras. The tail end of the not between the New Generation Rock and Wrestling, lived through New Generation Attitude Era, etc. He's never been in that top tier of guys in any of these eras. He's always been just below that tier, and I can't justify putting somebody who wasn't at the absolute top in my top 25. That being said, the JT had mentioned he was there when Undertaker wrestled Yokozuna, and Will was there when Will was there when Undertaker wrestled Vader. I was fortunate enough to be there when he came out on the motorcycle for the first time as the American Badass.
Oh,
and
nice.
I could tell you that in that Freedom Hall in Louisville, Kentucky, about 3/4 of the arena had no idea who the hell that was, dressed up like a redneck on the damn motorcycle. So that gimmick
you got to give that DDP feud like -6 stars, man. That was horrible. I'm just saying that was horrible. Like any great match you had, -7 spaces on our list just for that DDP feud alone.
But Steve, then Vince McMahon did that walk, and it all was right.
Yes, but most of the stuff he's done since, I'd say, the Batista feud in 2007, most of what he's done since then has been pretty damn good. And I like the transition they did over time, where the story of the WrestleMania match had been who's going to square up on this invincible Undertaker, that after a while the story became, all right, this guy's been through some wars, he's vulnerable now. Will someone be lucky enough to knock him off that maybe couldn't have done it before, with Triple H chipping him down in some shitty matches year after year. And then finally he met the young bull Brock at the time when Taker, honestly, as banged up as he was, probably should have retired then. But I just thought that was a good year-to-year evolution of that character. I said probably around 30 for me.
Yeah. See, I mean, and even those WrestleMania matches, man. So we're looking at the CM Punk match, which was amazing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Stole the show. Just highlighted how horrible of a wrestler Triple H is. Then you have the 2 Triple H matches, which get a lot of hype. The 2 Shawn Michaels matches, which get a lot of hype. But, dude, the last few years, man, I'm sorry, man. I sat through that Shane McMahon debacle. I mean, it was a spectacle, man, but it sucked. I watched that Bray Wyatt crap in San Francisco. That sucked. This match with Roman this last year, that sucked. Like, I mean,
but they're making him be.
Man. Like,
I mean, they're dragging his
moments, man. But
he should have been.
But they're dragging his broken down ass out there to like make him do this shit to draw for WrestleMania. I can't hold
making him do anything, man.
Oh, come on. Yeah, they basically are. They're backing the truck up and saying, come out here, we need you to sell Mania. I mean,
We're going to kill Michelle. Like,
Right, I mean, him and I can't ding him for a fucking not.
Excuse him for that, man.
Who's ever got a good match out of Bray Wyatt? Daniel Bryan is the only one.
That's right. That's why Daniel Bryan's in my top 5, brother.
I got him higher than Taker too, but it's like I can't punish Taker for not having a great 9-minute match at WrestleMania with Bray Wyatt at the end of his fucking career.
But you know what, I thought that New Orleans John Cena Bray Wyatt match was really good. You know, on second viewing, I enjoyed it, man. You know, I mean, but yeah, I mean, Bray Wyatt's another one of those guys that has no business on anywhere near this list, you know. But it's kind of my argument, man, is that I don't hate Taker like I hate Kane or I hate Triple H or anything or Bray Wyatt. Like I got Taker, you know, at number 51 because he's kind of like right in the middle of when I watch wrestling, whether it's for the angles or the promos or the matches. Like, it's not just matches. Like, he had some absolutely horrible angles as well. They were just cringy and nasty and ugly. Like, one of my favorite wrestling moments live was when Booker T pinned Undertaker in 2001. It was the night before 9/11, which would make it 9/10, just so you know. So that's math. Anyway, so that night, Chronic interfered and cost Taker the match, and somebody pinned Taker on national TV, and I was like, yes. And then 9/11 happened, and nobody remembered it, so I was really upset. Anyway, I remembered I was there.
That's the tragedy of 9/11. It's right there.
The true tragedy.
That's it, man.
Where were you the night the Undertaker lost to Booker T?
Exactly, man. You know, and so for me, having said all this, like, Taker's on my list. He's, you know, I struggled. Like, should I have him at 49 or 51? Like, is he more on the happy side or is he more on the, okay, we're slipping side? And he just slips for me, man. I mean, it's not like he's not on my list. I have him on my list. I just don't see, for me, and I explained this with Triple H and King, when you're given X amount of time on TV and you're given X amount of time in the company, I'm not even knocking them for like popping up once a year for WrestleMania season, right? Overall. I'm just saying, like, hey guys, let's slow the roll on like saying that he was great at WrestleMania these last few years. No, he sucked, you know, after that Triple H and Punk feud stuff, you know. But when he's given X amount of time and it's equally good and bad, regardless of the circumstance or the angle or the match or whatever, I just can't get him past that midpoint on my list. Anyway, I mean, I feel bad because Aaron and JT were just going to quickly summarize their thoughts that they made on their podcast, and we ended up spending like half hour on Undertaker, but that's okay. Yeah. So let's talk about one of Undertaker's most important opponents.
King.
You know, no. See, I mean, that's negative space for Undertaker too. Like, King dragged Undertaker below the halfway point on my list, like almost single-handedly, him and DDP. So it's like, let's talk about this guy because, you know, after HBK's reemergence, he had the 2 great matches with Taker, right? Was it 25 and 26? Were those the Manias or 24, 25?
Yep, 25,
26.
25, 26. And then he had the really hot feud in 97, early 98. And so now we're going to talk about Shawn Michaels. And Shawn Michaels, one of those guys where, you know, some people think he's the best of all time. They agree with this WWE history writing that says he's the icon, the showstopper, all that crap. And then there's guys that are like, there's a lot of things that he does that just annoy the hell out of me. And he was a completely selfish and immature and unprofessional piece of shit that doesn't deserve to be the number 1 spot. And I see both sides. Having said that, I'll give my take in a bit, but I really want to get JT's take on Shawn Michaels.
Okay. So I have Shawn not in my. He's like at the bottom of my top 10. I don't think you can have again, kind of like a Hogan or whatever WWF list. I mean, he's going to be in the conversation to be that high. I think he's just got too many peak moments and matches. I know there's a lot of criticisms out there about him, and I do think some of them are very valid. But I mean, there's stretches where he's just like just at elite level. Like there's 95 when he comes back after Sid powerbombs him, and he just has that run into 96 of great matches. starting with the Jeff Jarrett match at In Your House, then you got the Razor rematch at SummerSlam 95. Yeah, he's just working at a level so far kind of beyond what everyone else has got going on. He has a great run as champion in 96, despite some of his attitude issues, and of course the drawing, which I don't factor in. I made that clear from day one that I'm not really factoring in drawing ability, because I just don't think everyone's given a fair shake. I don't know how you could equate apples to apples for that. I may use it to break ties. You know, if I have a guy at 8 and a guy at 9 that I'm torn on, I may use like the 9th tiebreaker, but when I'm overall ranking...
Well, just curious, who do you have at 8 and 9?
I was just giving numbers, but Shawn Michaels is at 8 and Bret Hart's at 9, so there you go.
Oh, shit. Okay.
So,
awesome.
Shawn, so during that stretch, and then 97, when he turns heel, I think you could argue him as maybe a top 3 heel run of all time in 97, the initial DX stuff in company history, not all-time wrestling, but in WWF history.
Amazing.
I mean, just tremendous. You know, it's like from the minute he hits Undertaker with the chair at SummerSlam, it's on until he leaves at WrestleMania 14. And I haven't even talked about his Rockers run yet either, which is just fantastic. So many high-level tag matches in there that he had. Clearly, I think Marginetti, I think very highly of Marginetti. He's on my list. But Shawn was clearly the standout in a lot of those matches, in my opinion. And just big-time moments galore. Like, even if his career ended in 98, I think he still has a case to be up there pretty high on a WWF-only list. And then, yes, I know there's criticisms in his return. I know he has too many matches that were probably, longer than they needed to be a lot of times. And I think that ran in the family, quote-unquote, with a lot of guys that he was wrestling with. But it was just the era that they were in. And of those matches that feel like that, the epics that weren't quite epics, like I think his are usually the best of the bunch of all the guys that were doing that stuff. And then he has matches that were legitimately great in that run too. Again, maybe he's hurt by the volume of wrestling on Raw every single week, and I factor that in for the WWF. Like, you talked about it before, Will, the dog years comparison, right? Guys that are around in the 2000s just age so much quicker because they're on TV and getting exposed so much that they're having so many matches. But even then, if you go back and watch a lot of those Raws, he was still having a higher quality match than a lot of other guys. So yes, he is a man with flaws. He is a man that I've heard people say that he'll be in the top 1 or 2 or whatever. I can't put him that high because I do think he's got some slight deficiencies beyond the guys that I have above him. But I do think he is great enough that he deserves to be where he is on my list, number 8. Also, promo skills tremendous. Moments, the jump up moments for me are what really catapult him even beyond the work. Just when you think of some of the big ones, the Montreal where he teases Bret Hart coming back, awesome moment. Hitting the Undertaker with the chair, awesome moment. Even his entrance at WrestleMania 25 in the white garb to go against the darkness of the Undertaker, great moment. Just so many moments and memorable promos and stuff, all that DX stuff I talked about.
Okay. It's cool if you talk about the early DX stuff, as long as you.
Oh no, that is a big
DX.
Yeah, no, late DX, 06, 07 DX is a big black mark for him. It's easily the worst stretch of his career.
And 08, 09, man. Ugh.
Well, 08 though, you got all the Jericho stuff, which I thought was great.
Like no, but the DX stuff.
Right, so that's
or
like
was it just 09.
It's pretty much 06 and then 09, yeah. 08 has 09.
Okay, I'm sorry. 08, the Jericho feud was awesome.
Right, all of that. When it was his wife getting punched and the fucking getting thrown to the Geritron, and and the matches they had, all great. So yes, he has pockets of stuff that maybe keeps him down a little bit. But again, the volume of his career, he's a compiler too. Like, he's just been around so long, he's going to compile stuff that makes him, drop down a bit. But unlike Undertaker, he has way more good than bad, whereas Undertaker's closer to that balance. Yeah.
And that's why I can never justify Undertaker as high as like 25 when someone who had almost as long of a career like Shawn Michaels has so many less valleys.
Right. But on my list, he's like 11.
The separation is so apparent.
Right, and that's worth about 12 spots on my list. So it's the gap is significant. Because, like I said, I got Shawn 8. And if this is a worldwide list, he's not that high. But WWF only, I think he comes in that high despite his deficiencies.
Okay, that's cool. Steve?
JT already mentioned a lot of what I had as the highlights. He did a lot of just here and there. He would just pop up with a phenomenal performance that would just remind you who the hell he was. Sometimes you just weren't expecting it. Survivor Series 2003, he put on a fantastic performance in a 5-on-5 tag match. It was Bischoff's team against Austin's team, and it was down to Michaels against 3 guys, and he was bleeding all over the place and selling and just doing fantastic. Obviously, there was the 2005 Raw match with Shelton Benjamin that was like that as well. The 1991 Royal Rumble match with the Rockers against Orient Express just came from out of nowhere to be a barn burner of a match. I mentioned earlier that I was there when The Undertaker came back as the American Badass. I was also there the night that Shawn Michaels that his wife got punched by Jericho. So that is the counterbalance to the shitty Undertaker experience. That was phenomenal being there live. As far as his low points, nobody really talks about it anymore. Remember when he had to be JBL's Virgil for a while?
Yes.
That was bad, man.
I mean, even though he had supposedly had bad stock investments, we're just supposed to not believe that this guy has a $750,000 WWE contract.
Well, he's paying off all the debts.
Right. To me, that was just god-awful. But even in that, he was still having good performances, even when he wasn't in the match. The 2009 title match with JBL and Cena, where Shawn was supposed to be fired if JBL didn't win the title, Shawn Michaels milked so much out of just standing there for what had to be a good 90 seconds and deciding who he was going to super kick. That, I mean, he's recognized for all the big flamboyant play into the back row stuff that he does, but in that second half of his career, he did a lot of subtle stuff like that surprisingly well. He's a guy who's probably top 10, maybe top 15 for me.
All right, Aaron?
Yeah, I probably got him at the top of my second tier of guys. I don't think for me he could be number one, but of all I probably have a group of 4 or 5 guys who I think for me could legitimately be number one. But I think if anybody, I would entertain the argument with him more from someone else. I think we've all talked about his great things. I also wouldn't sleep on his. I think he's quite a good Royal Rumble performer. He's got a bunch of those where he's quite good in. I really liked him in '94. In '95, he's the only good thing in it. I really liked him in 2010 as well, with the idea of he had to win that match to face the Undertaker again. I also love him in the secondary role as the referee at SummerSlam '97. I think he's just awesome in that role. I'll echo JT's original DX is one of the best heel runs of all time. And I would venture that even the things that are bad about him, because I don't recall him outside of the DX stuff in his second run, I don't recall there being that much bad. Bad. There's stuff that's not as good, but I'm not, and please tell me what it is then, because I'm not seeing the stuff that would knock him really down a list. I've heard yeah, but I don't think it's not technically bad though. The Triple H feud. Their first match is good. The one at the SummerSlam.
One they had on Raw in San Antonio was good. All the pay-per-view matches sucked.
Yeah, but that was more of a
SummerSlam didn't suck.
No, SummerSlam's great. I would say the other ones, the 3 Stages of Hell was terrible. I liked their match at Taboo Tuesday '04. I thought it was pretty good despite the injury. So even those the Triple H matches are those two kind of indulging themselves, right? So sure, let's knock them for those. But that's 5 matches. What else are we talking about here? Even his match with Chris Masters was pretty good, in a time when Masters wasn't great. So I think
I love them. That's a great match.
I just rewatched it. I think I had it at around a 3, which is good. It was fine.
I mean, for 05 Chris Masters, yes. I mean, Chris Masters gets really good later, but at that point he, wasn't. And Shawn, that's the first really good match of Masters' career.
Yeah, and I would also just bring up Michaels' timing is really amazing. He knows just what to do when. And I think that one of the best things that really shows how great he is in ring is that you'll notice when he comes out, when he's introduced for a match, the pop is never usually huge. It's a respectable thing. But as the match goes on, by the end, they are biting on every single thing he's doing. And that's just a testament to how much he's captured them during the match. So for me, he's high. He's in the top 10. But yeah, I'd like to hear the arguments why he shouldn't be.
All right, well, I'll make them. That's cool. All right, and so I have him high for my list. I have him at 25. Right below Finley. So that's where he's at on my list. Okay.
So you have Finley at 24?
Yeah. And so let me explain here. All right, here's the deal, Shawn.
I'm gonna take it.
I kind of watched his whole career here, right? And like for me, like when you have as many memories as I do because of my decrepit old age, you start remembering like the Rockers, and you're thinking, man. And then you start revisiting that footage. I think, man, this might be the greatest tag team in WWF history. And I put Marty Jannetty on my list just because the Rockers had such a great run, right? I mean, I love the Rockers. But then I remember watching like Glow Stick DX and thinking, ew, how bad is that? And then I look at something like, man, Shawn Michaels in 97 as a heel was awesome. Like, that Bulldog match. That might be the most heat Shawn Michaels ever got in his career, was that Bulldog match at Wembley. And that was awesome. That was awesome. And he was a great heel that summer. Looking back, it's kind of cringy, but for the time, watching it live, man, it was awesome. I was there. I was around, that time, watching all this stuff, eating it up, man. The problem I have with Shawn Michaels in that first stage, right, is when they made him the champ in 96 and let him run, it's like he's playing like and acting and dressing like a gay stripper. And I'm cool with that. Whatever, dude. You want to be a gay stripper. But that's not what they were portraying him as. You know what I mean? It's like his gimmick and the way he danced and the way he carried himself really didn't match with the character they were trying to get over. And so, like, it was like you go from, like, this mediocre babyface head of the company champion who I can't take seriously to, like, the best heel ever, right? It almost, you had to have that mediocre babyface championship run to become the best heel ever,
Yeah, so you can't have one without the other, basically.
Then you could act like a coked out stripper and be a dick and everybody hates you, and that's cool. You know what I mean? Because everybody hates coked out strippers, So, having said that, so to me, there's a lot of that. Then there's the unprofessional manner in the ring, and I've kind of explained this, and this is why I kind of lean on this side, like when it comes to performances. Like, I don't think Shawn Michaels has had as many 5-star matches as, say, like maybe JT or Aaron thinks that he's had. Maybe matches that y'all would call 5 stars, I might call 3 or 3.5, just because of what I look for in my wrestling matches. Shawn Michaels puts on performances, and sometimes those actions in the ring, the aesthetics of what's going on in the ring, they might look pretty, but it doesn't look like a wrestling match. And that's just the way I feel about it. Like some of the worst punches at certain points in his career. Sometimes you're like looking at a punch and you're like, oh wow, he's really punching Razor Ramon. But then other times you're looking and it's like, dude, that wouldn't hurt a feather. He's clearly performing a wrestling match and not wrestling a wrestling match. And whether you agree with that or not, it's to me a complaint that's been out there for probably at least a decade that I've been online that I actually tend to agree with. Thinking about stuff like, unprofessional behavior, the Vader match, it was Vader, right? Where he just like loses it mid-ring. And it's like, dude, you're the babyface champion. Why are you acting like this? Or the Hogan match where he bounces around like a pinball and you can tell he's taking the piss out of Hogan. You know what I mean? When guys like, at this very same time, guys like Chris Jericho, Rock, Edge, even Edge, right? Or whatever, are having these like really good matches with Hogan or as his tag partner. And then here Shawn Michaels puts on this, I have to do the job, so I'm going to cry performance. Dude, leave that shit backstage. Let me read about it in the Observer. You know what I mean? It kills me with him, Then I think my feeling on Shawn Michaels post comeback, because pre comeback, I think it's, at least for me, it's kind of like Rockers, awesome, feud with Ramon, awesome, bunch of stuff around that. Then 95, 96 individual good performances, then great 97. Post Michaels, I always felt like his best stuff was, as long as you don't put me in the main event, I can get something great. If you put me in the main event or like in that program, except with the Taker thing, which, because there are some people who hate the Taker matches. I didn't. I loved them. But besides that, you put him in the main event with Triple H, put the belt on him. Man, I just wasn't feeling it. The Cena matches, not feeling. Didn't they have like an hour-long match?
Yeah, I like that one a lot.
I love
I didn't like it. I didn't like it. To me, it was just too long. It was just, and I'm a big Cena fan. Cena's a guy in my top 10, whereas, Shawn Michaels just was missing. So,
see, if I may just jump on that for a second.
Yeah, go for it.
Because a lot of the criticism you just levied at him in terms of his ring work, I think you can easily levy the same way at Cena. Like, easily. Like, in terms, and we'll get to it when we talk to Cena, so let's remember that. Like, when we get there.
Yeah, let's hold that off for Cena. I disagree with you, but I understand your point on some issues. And here's another thing, like, I'll never criticize, like, because I'm a blood guy, right? I'm a vampire, right? I like to see guys bleed in wrestling matches. I like to see guys punch each other in the face. That's what I love, right? So I'm not going to criticize guys for, doing what the company says. The company loves Michaels, right? They love his performance art stuff. I don't get that vibe from Cena. I get that from Michaels, and like, it's really hard for me to like watch a lot of Michaels matches and just think, he's performing, he's not wrestling. And when you take me out of a wrestling match like that, you've lost me. Think about someone who flies around and flips and flops more than anybody on earth, and that's Rey Mysterio. To me, Rey Mysterio is not a performer, he's a wrestler. He's just using his strengths as a wrestler, which is flying and flipping and keeping that opponent off his feet, or making the opponent, look 7 ways before he can find him before he hits that big shot. To me, that's the difference between a guy like Rey Mysterio who flies around and a guy like Shawn Michaels who flies around. One's wrestling to his strengths, the other one's performing. And to me, it takes me out of his matches, and that's just how I feel about it. Having said that, dude, I got him at number 25. He's in the top quarter. I got him below Finley because I like Finley a lot. He punches people in the mouth, and he had Little Bastard, and that's enough for me. And so I'm good with that. So.
It's like, my question to you though is like a guy like Finley, like what high end stuff does he have on the same level as Michael's high end stuff?
He doesn't have WWF high end stuff, but to me, Finley was more consistent than his.
So you're valuing. So in your ranking, then you value consistency more than someone who creates maybe some of the greater moments in company history.
Consistency. Well, see, but that's just it. Consistency combined with emotional connection. You know what I mean? Like there's more than just one thing. Like it's not just one category, right? Like dude, I'm not going to dispute that. Like Finley has more great matches than Michaels, but I will say that Finley in his time had some of the greatest matches that I wanted to watch. But
not the WWF.
Like, no, maybe not, but he Definitely had matches that I get more excited. But see, here's the thing: he has matches, when I say great, that excite me more than almost any Michaels match you can list. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to be more excited watching Finley versus JBL at WrestleMania than I am watching Shawn Michaels versus Undertaker. Because they're doing what I want in that match more than what Michaels and Undertaker are, regardless of the time given, the slot on the show. I'm going to be more excited about watching Finley and Regal punch each other in the mouth for 5 minutes than I am anything that Michaels has in his career. Because that's exactly what I'm looking for out of my wrestling.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm going to rank
if it comes down to that personal
every single time, Well, no, it's what you value in wrestling. That's kind of like my overall theme. And once at the end of the show, I'm going to give my top 10, and you'll understand exactly why. But it's, to me, wrestling, like, that's why intangibles is more important to me, than I guess, or even the jump up moments for me are completely different than what the jump up moments are for you. You know what I mean? And that's okay. That's where the difference comes, dude. You know what? One of my biggest jump up moments for a guy we're not talking about is Jerry Lawler punching DiBiase Jr. in the mouth. Do y'all remember that?
Yep.
All it was a fucking punch. And it was like a meaningless punch in the big scheme of things or whatever. One of my biggest jump up moments. Holy shit, did you see that punch? That's why I got, someone like Lawler really high, because he fits that category because of what I'm looking for. Whereas, let's say 10-year-old JT jumped up when Undertaker, slammed the casket on Ultimate Warrior. I'm just using that example. That for you was a jump up moment. To me, that was I'm going to roll my eyes, go find a girl to kiss and drink a beer because I was in high school moment. You know what I mean? Like, fuck this fake shit, and that's what I'm talking about. Things that I value are going to be different from you within each category.
Yeah, that makes total sense. It's just like when I was compiling mine, it was very much about because there's a lot of guys I have high that I don't necessarily really like. And it's really about okay, well, how can I justify putting this guy ahead when even though he might have more worse stuff, like I was saying with Hogan, or even Undertaker, the good stuff is the stuff you remember forever, right? Whether it's regardless of performance, and even if it is something as simple as a punch. So, yeah, I guess it really just depends on what you value, and I guess we just value different things when it comes to this guy.
Absolutely, and I've been saying not just this guy, but
in general, yeah, probably.
But in general wrestling, dude, JT, we're both great friends with Scott. I love Scott to death. Triple H is his favorite fucking wrestler. Who in the fuck has Triple H as their favorite wrestler when there's so many awesome wrestlers in wrestling history? There are some amazing wrestlers. We're talking about them on this show in wrestling history, and Triple H, for whatever reason, his favorite wrestler. Wait, when I was at WrestleMania Miami, the one with Rock Cena won, I forget the number or whatever. But what number was that, 30 or 29 or something?
28.
28. When I was there, I was still smoking cigarettes at the time, and I was on a cigarette break in that stadium, and this guy was also taking a cigarette break. He has a Triple H shirt on, and this was before the cage match with Taker, and he's like, man, if this is Triple H's last match, man, I don't know, man, I might just start crying. And I'm like, dude, don't worry, man, it's not his last match, bro. It's not. Keep it on the level, man. You need to hold tight. He's gonna do great, man. They're gonna have a Hell in a Cell. They're always good. Just be calm. And he's like, man, I don't know, man. He means so much to me. And I was like, holy shit. This guy really loves Triple H. And I was like, at that point, there's no way him and I could ever talk about wrestling critically. You know what I mean? There's just no way, because we value completely different things. And so that's kind of my point. Bruno Sammartino, I love his best stuff with Larry Zbyszko. I got him at number 21, right? I got him above William Regal, who's one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. But I acknowledge that the Bruno Larry feud holds a lot of weight, for me in this list because of what I value. But Shawn Michaels doesn't have a lot of what I value except, say, for that Rockers run and that 97 heel run. There's nothing in that return run besides the Jericho feud that, I jump up for. You know what I mean? It's oh, cool, they had a good match. I didn't have to go to the restroom during this match. But nothing that excited me. Not the Vince match. I rewatched the Vince match this summer. I thought it was horrible, by the way.
I love the Vince match.
I just thought the extended setup moments for the garbage spots were horrible. I hated – I did not like the Spirit Squad run-in. It was just – I thought it was actively bad. I was there live for that DX glow stick crap. I hated that. So there is stuff that I just hated from Michaels, but dude, I'm going to give the guy props, man. There was stuff I liked too, so, I got him really high. To me, 25 is really high, but if you don't do anything that I value, I can't have you high on the list. Guys, we've talked about Shawn Michaels. Did anyone not give their take on Shawn Michaels? Steve, did you give your take?
Yes, I did. JT started us off.
It was about 45 minutes ago he did, yeah.
Right.
I know, man. Well, these are important guys in history, man. That's why this shit's going to happen. But we all gave our take, right?
Yeah, we're done. Yep.
All right. So
in the time that we've been talking about Shawn Michaels, I retired and came back and had another 4-year podcast career.
Nice. That's awesome, man. You retired.
But you did no podcasting that Will valued, so it's not good.
That's right.
Because I value every single time that Steve and I have been on a podcast together. Dude, I value every single time you and I have been on a podcast together.
Steve's punches suck.
That might be true. I've never seen Steve throw a punch, but I'm not going to judge that because mine probably suck too. Having said all that, let's go to Shawn Michaels' arch nemesis, his Joker to or no, he would be the Joker to this guy's Batman. He'd be the Lex Luthor to this guy's Superman. We're talking about Bret Hart, man, a Canadian, freaking Canadian. So, Steve, you haven't talked in a while. Talk about this Canadian hero, Bret Hart.
Well, when I was 10, 11 years old, Bret Hart was my favorite wrestler, but that was 25 years ago. Since then, there's been so many other people who come through, more dynamic and just better overall performers. Bret was very, obviously technically sound in what he did, very workmanlike, but he didn't have a lot of the same charisma that a lot of the guys that came after him had. As far as his highlights go, obviously the feud with Austin, he absolutely made Steve Austin in 96, 97. He had Diesel's best matches. Obviously the Mr. Perfect match at SummerSlam 91 is highly rated by a lot of people. And I think the King of the Ring 93 match is underrated. My favorite period of Bret Hart is the U.S. versus Canada stuff in the summer of 97. Just phenomenal heat every week, depending on where they were. His low light, 1995. Bret was kind of the forgotten guy as they shifted toward Diesel being the top guy in the promotion. Bret spent a lot of that year working with Isaac Yankem and had Jerry Lawler beat him, I think, 3 times on TV. Just insane shit for where they were.
But he still had good matches in there. The Hakushi match, the Jean-Pierre Lafitte match. And I've talked about this on a couple of shows. I think the promo he has where he beats the shit out of Lawler at ringside to get him to agree to a rematch is like tremendous. It's one of my favorite things. He also has the 2 Diesel matches, so don't sleep on his 95 too much.
Yeah,
and Bulldog in December 95. Shut up, Steve.
Yeah,
I like those Lawler matches. I think that
of course you do. Oh, what a fucking shock! You like the Lawler matches.
The Lawler matches.
Yeah,
were
what
good.
a fucking surprise.
The stupid shit like Kiss My Foot shit, completely stupid. But the matches were good.
Hey, I recently rewatched every televised Bret Hart 1995 match for some God only knows why reason, and his performances in the matches were good. It's just that they didn't mean much overall in the grand scheme of the company. He was putting on solid matches while the focus was on Diesel and on Shawn and even on Bam Bam Bigelow and Sid and those types. I'm just saying he was significantly further down the card in that time.
But they do talk a ton about, like, I'm watching them all now, so I'm watching all these Raws.
Yeah.
They talk about that feud non-fucking stop throughout Raw. Through, like, the whole show, all I talk about on commentary. Part of it's because Lawler's on commentary, but they talk about it, like, non-stop. So, I mean, I guess I'm taking it upon me to slay some of these tropes, and I'm glad you've watched the stuff, so you kind of get it. But I feel like some of the tropes of 95's garbage and Bret was not like it hasn't as true as I thought it was as well.
Right, I agree with you.
Yeah, it's not nearly as bad as it's made out to be now, or people are realizing that now. I think there's been more rewatching recently with people I've seen on Twitter actively talking about this era out of nowhere, seemingly. I was there for the Hakushi match where Hakushi did the space flying tiger drop for the first time on US TV. And that match was just fucking bonkers, man. It was the night after In Your House where Shawn wrestled Jarrett. Then the next night Bret wrestles Hakushi, so it's back-to-back. Just great shit out of nowhere. That being said, Bret probably going to be just outside of my top 10. He had the obvious terrible match with Vince, but I don't think you can really factor in that 2010 stuff because that's Lloyd's of London. Bret can't really do anything legally. He's wearing fucking jean shorts and Reebok tennis shoes. I just have to ignore that and look at the body of what Bret's career was, 85 to 97. The man was one of the more consistent
hold on. What period are you ignoring from Bret?
The 2010 comeback with Ray Russell.
Oh yeah, that's not even really Bret Hart.
No,
that's Bret. That's Bret Hart with stroke in parentheses. Bret Hart. That doesn't count.
Yeah, that's the fucking ghost of Bret Hart. That's not Bret Hart.
That's not. I don't even acknowledge that as a negative because it's not actually Bret Hart.
But yeah, that's all I got to say about Bret. Solid, consistent, probably just outside of my top 10.
Okay, I mean that's fair. I mean he's in my top 10, but whatever. JT, where's Bret on your list?
Yeah, I've already said more
on the making the cut. I was just curious.
Yeah, I've already said more than I wanted to about Bret because we did. Aaron and I spent like 90 minutes on Bret, pretty much. It's our last episode. You can check out Making the Cut.
What number is that for the people who are looking? Like, what
I think it was
episode?
There's another running joke. I always forget what number episode it was. Was it 5, Aaron? 5 or 6? Whatever.
I don't know. I think it's 5.
If you search Making the Cut, it's the newest one. We did a 3-way. Bret Hart versus CM Punk versus was it Foley?
Mick Foley.
Yeah, Mick Foley.
Yeah,
so
Foley.
we debated the 3 of those guys.
Okay,
Bret Hart number 9 on my list.
all right, cool. And what about you, Aaron?
Bret Hart number 14.
Wow, man.
I'm not super high on Bret. And I'll give you a hot take because I already talked 90 minutes on him. But what I've discovered is that
No good slime.
hey, you don't talk to me that way. What I've discovered is that I find Bret Hart is a lot of guys' favorite wrestler from that era, and it's the wrestler I feel when I'm debating and talking with people that the biases are the strongest, that I have seen anyway. Not that that's good, bad, or indifferent. I just think he's got a lot of holes, and he's another guy I don't think should be considered for number 1. There's just too many holes. But again, that's me, and you can listen to Making a Cut to get it all.
You can never have too many holes.
Hey, Greg Valentine was not Canadian, right?
No, not even.
Okay, good. All right, just making sure. So, all right, I didn't know. Where's Greg Valentine from?
What a segue.
The fuck does Greg Valentine have to do any of this besides?
I'm going to tell you.
Besides, it takes him 40 minutes to warm up, like you.
Well, because I was looking at my top 10, and he was the only guy I wasn't sure where he was from. So I
Seattle,
guarantee
Washington.
that Bret Hart
Seattle.
is the only guy from Canada in my top 10.
I thought you were going to say in your top 100.
And he beats the only Texan on my list too, from the top. No, wait, no,
JBL?
he doesn't. Never mind, scratch that. He doesn't beat Tex. There's 2 Texans in the top list. All right, whatever. So here's the thing with Bret Hart. And we talk about emotional connection, right? For me, wrestling is meaningless if I don't have emotional connections to guys.
You had to mention that.
And that's why I'm really struggling watching the current product right now, because there is absolutely nobody on that roster right now, save for a little bit of AJ Styles, and that's only because he's so good. He's jumped 15, 20 spots on my list in the last 6 months, right? And I'm not even emotionally connected to that guy. As an indie guy, always one of my not least favorites, because I liked watching him, but zero emotional connection to him. All right. So Bret Hart is a guy that when I was a kid, I could always get behind. You know what I mean? When he was in the Hart Foundation, one of my first favorite moments with Bret Hart, getting thrown out of the Battle Royal by Andre the Giant, right? One of my favorite moments watching as a kid, emotional connection. Then his face turned. Was it WrestleMania 4 Battle Royal? Was that what it was?
It was around there, yeah. Throughout that song.
Yeah, I remember watching that super long, boring-ass pay-per-view. So glad Bret Hart was becoming a face and got away from that fucking showed Jim Neidhart. And it was one of the highlights of the night for me, because I remember my mom got all pissed off because we were paying for WrestleMania, but I switched it to the Clash of the Champions. And she's like, if you're just going to watch free TV, I'm going to save money, blah, blah. I was like, oh, sorry, Mom. I'll switch you back to the boring wrestling, But anyway, that's just neither here nor there. So Bret Hart was involved in these moments. Then I stopped watching wrestling completely. So then you come to these moments where you're flipping the channel and wrestling's on. And something like Papa Shango, Undertaker, Yokozuna comes on. I'm turning the channel. Someone like Bret Hart comes on, Ric Flair comes on. I'm going to keep it on, see what's going on, catch up with these guys. So, one of the few guys during my wrestling exodus that could make me keep the channel on wrestling during that time. And then we get back into when I got back into watching wrestling, which was late 96, early 97, which was disgruntled Bret Hart cutting 20-minute promos, just ranting and raving, doing all this crazy stuff. I was hooked. I was all in. And then the Hart Foundation stuff from 97, I was in, all in. Watching a house show match. It wasn't even a house show. It was a Raw taping. It was the Raw was when Austin and Dude Love beat Bulldog and Owen for the tag belts. Do y'all remember that?
Oh yeah, great moment.
Well, the main event was Bret Hart, Steve Austin, Undertaker in a 3-way match. And, they'd kind of like push Undertaker out. Then Bret and Austin would do some great stuff. And then, Undertaker come in, clear house. Then they double team Undertaker. Anyway, point was like, once again, emotional connection. So I had this emotional connection with Bret Hart through all these times that wrestling mattered to me. Then years go by, the guy's retired, he got kicked in the head by Goldberg, all this other crap happened. I come back and I start revisiting his career. I'm doing this yearbook project with my buddy Charles where we're like getting all the important moments from the 90s. And I start revisiting his career. And like we talked about consistency earlier. It's like the guy almost never had a bad match. He had those boring matches, those dull matches, but never a bad, like always consistent. And to me, he was a wrestler. A few matches you could say, they're performances, but not like where Shawn Michaels, to me, was clearly a performer, not a wrestler. Just the difference in what I want from my wrestling, what I value from my wrestling. And then you'd have great matches, not just with the guys that you expect them to have great matches with, but guys like Yokozuna, guys like 1-2-3 Kid, who he has like phenomenal, like 15, 20-minute matches with. Then I'm one of people who likes that Ric Flair feud 92. Almost always put on a great performance on pay-per-view. Revisiting that 95 stuff, same with you, JT. I like a lot of that 95 stuff. So Bret Hart's a guy that just consistently through that whole time. I'm not even like a big Hart Foundation guy. Like I'm always a Bulldogs guy and then later a Rockers guy, right? But consistently the better member of the Hart Foundation. It's not too hard to do, but given good performances in those tag matches, even if the tag matches weren't great because fucking Jim Neidhart sucks, and that's okay. So I'm going to value Bret Hart for that. He has the emotional connection for me where these moments in wrestling that matter to me, these jump up moments, like, man, I just remember getting back into wrestling and listening to Bret Hart go on these tirades and the sunny days and, just cussing on TV for like first time I'd ever heard anyone cuss on TV, in a wrestling show and just like, oh my God, what's going on here? So there's just like this emotional connection. And then the whole Montreal fallout, I was just glued to all of that stuff, man. I was just like fascinated by it. And so when you combine his top level matches, obviously the Austin Classics, master, see, those are matches where if you said those are 5 stars, I wouldn't even argue with you, man. I'd say, yeah, I'm with you, You say Shawn Michaels Undertaker's 5 stars, and we're like, maybe for you. All right, that's good. You and Meltzer, that's cool. But you say Austin Bret's 5 stars. I'm like, dude, yeah, I agree, man. That was a masterful performance, by both guys. So he has all of those things for me, and that consistency, and those great moments. And I love his feuds, and so he's real high up there on my list, man. I got him higher than all of you. I got him at number 8. So that's my take on Bret Hart. Anyone want to argue?
No. Thank you for putting my son in the list.
That was pretty good. I don't know what the hell you said, but
that's why it was realistic. Like... no one knows what he said.
Yeah, that was awesome, man. Which one of you did that?
No, it was me. It was just, no, I definitely was.
He's from the Canada.
That has to be Steve, right?
Why does it smell like cat piss in here all of a sudden?
Well, I'm just saying, like, if you're like legally Canadian, you're not like allowed to make fun of other Canadians, right?
I'm honoring him. I'm honoring him.
Oh, Aaron, that was you. Wow, man. Okay. Is that what you call it? That's cool. All right. No, that was awesome, man. You should do that more often. So anyway, having said all that, that's where we're at. Guys, we're halfway through this list.
Oh, God.
That's it? Hey, I thought we were going to spend like 4 minutes on The Undertaker, man. Y'all are the one who spent like 45 minutes on it. That's not, So anyway, let's take a word so we can give a shout out to all the things that are happening on Place to Be Nation. When we come back, we'll run down some more modern wrestlers and wrap this main event show up. You're listening to the Place to Be Nation.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Hey, pro wrestling announcer Kevin Kelly here. I want to make sure you are all subscribed to all the great feeds here at Place to Be Nation. It's really easy to do. Just head to iTunes or your preferred podcatcher app today and search and subscribe to the Place to Be Nation wrestling feed, which of course includes the full archives of the Kevin Kelly Show, the Place to Be Nation pod feed, and the Pro Wrestling Only feed. Subscribe, listen, and then rate us and leave feedback today. And be sure to give Justin your true thoughts. I mean, don't hold back. After all, he is kind of a jerk. Just listen to Scott.
Place to Be Nation's JT Rozzero and Chad Campbell here. We want to let you know that we have a ton of great podcasts available to you on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and PlaceToBeNation.com, and we offer those to you on 3 great feeds. On the Place to Be Nation wrestling feed, we bring you the Mothership, the original Place to Be podcast, as well as Main Event, Lucha Afterground, and our monthly pay-per-view reaction shows, as well as the Our Vantage Point podcast and Jeff Learns Wrestling. In addition to these full-length shows, we also deliver quick-hit pod blasts on topics old and new.
Over on the Pro Wrestling Only feed, we dive deep inside the wrestling business with a stacked army of experts leading the way. The feed features potpourri shows such as This Week in Wrestling, Greetings from Allentown, Psychology is Dead, Puro Potpourri, Stacy and Elliot's Bogus Journey, and the Military Industrial Suplex. We also have shows that focus intently on certain topics like Letters from Center Stage, Space City, and NWA Classics On Demand Adventure, Through the Years, Strong Style History, Strong Style Story, and Mount Olympus. Plus, the feed has the full archives of legendary shows like Titans of Wrestling, Where the Big Boys Play, Letters from Kayfabe, and much more. And on our popular Place to Be Nation Pop podcast feed, we offer such great shows as the Glenn Butler Podcast Hour Spectacular, Rank and File, PTBN Dadcast, Go Home in a Box, NBA Team, and Lucha Undead, as well as a veritable podcast heaven for comics fans with the Hard Traveling Fanboys, Sellers Points, Todd Weber's Conversation, Geek and Sassy, and Imaginary Stories podcasts.
You can find all of these current shows plus archives of our past podcasts, including The Kevin Kelly Show, as well by subscribing to all of our feeds on iTunes, and while there, be sure to rate and leave feedback as well. All of these shows, plus others, available on PlaceToBeNation.com, where we cover pro wrestling, sports, movies, comics, plus in-depth stretch projects and more. Be sure to support our site by using PlaceToBeNation.com/Amazon when shopping online, and download our free PTB Vintage Vault Refresh ebooks via the links on our site. We also want to thank our friends at Bonehead's Wing Bar in West Warwick, Rhode Island, and Fall River, Massachusetts, TheHistoryOfWrestling.com, and Scott Keats' Blog of Doom. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr as well. PlaceToBeNation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
All right, welcome back, Place to Be Nation, to the main event of the For Your Consideration series. I'm Will. I'm hanging out with JT, Aaron, and Steve, and we're talking about some of the best wrestlers in WWE history for the greatest WWE wrestler project over at Place to Be Nation. So make sure you get your ballot in before midnight on New Year's Eve. And so, guys, we talked about some iconic characters in the first half. We're going to continue that. And we're going to start with somebody who is not going to make my list. I acknowledge everything he's done in history. I acknowledge that, he's been a part of some really memorable angles, but I just despise everything he stands for, and that's Vince McMahon. And so, I'm really interested to get y'all's take on Vince. I know Aaron and Steve, y'all talked about Vince already. But I just kind of want y'all to just give a super quick summary, and I want to get Steve's take. So, Steve, give us your take on Vince, and I'll explain why he's not making my list.
Yeah, I'm with you. I understand the historical significance of Vince McMahon, especially as he the foil to Austin and kind of the co-lead character for quite a while there in the late 90s. But he's a guy that even in that role, his run just lasted way too long, stretching into 2006, 2007, all the way through 2010. It just became just tiresome.
07, some of his best stuff. Well, shut up.
Oh, how dare you, sir? How dare you? I think the best actual matches were Hogan at that WrestleMania in 2003. And some of the actual DX matches weren't bad for what they were, but the absolute best Vince performance in ring was Shane McMahon at WrestleMania 17. Just all the bells and whistles, shits and giggles shit you can pull out of one match they did for that. It was just a masterpiece of gaga booking. That being said, he's not, for somebody as big and muscular as he is, he's not particularly athletic. He could be carried with the smoke and mirrors, but as a wrestler, no, he's not on my list.
Okay. I thought you were going to elaborate, but you didn't. What did y'all say about him briefly, Aaron?
I think we both had him. Do we both have him at number 6?
You don't talk for me.
Holy shit.
Yep, I do.
Above Bret Hart?
Yeah.
Oh, I have him way ahead of Bret. I have him ahead of Cena, and I have him ahead of Shawn.
Oh, God. Why?
Go listen to Making the Cut.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for caring enough about us.
Way to show prep, asshole.
Ever since I started this new job, I have listened to
yeah, I know you work.
We could have been just pornographers, and we could have just destroyed everything. You had no clue.
This is absolutely true. Now, okay, whatever, man.
Look,
but be fair, man. I have been out of the loop. So, but once you said 6, I was like, man, I figured like 46, 66, 86. Okay, whatever. 6. All right.
Well, see, I think Aaron feels like me, and I'm going to let you talk, Aaron. I'm going to shut up in 1 second. I feel like if you're going to rank him, to me, he's got to be high. Like if you're not ranking him for the reasons that would put him this high on the list, then he probably shouldn't be on your list. Because like just to throw him at like 70, I think discounts all the great stuff about him as a character in the ring. So to me, it's either like there or nowhere. That's where I'm at on it. Go ahead.
You know what? I'm not even going to argue with that. That's cool. Go.
Yeah. And I don't want to I'm not going to argue from the perspective that he's a great wrestler, because obviously he's not. But I will definitely argue, and this is the only point I'll make because we talked at length with him. I think he's got a case for the best performer in the company history. I think he's got a case for that in terms of what he brings to promos and the character and all that. And we discussed that at length on
awesome. Now I'm going to go listen to that show. Like, next time I go to the track, man, to burn off some LBs, man, I'm definitely downloading it and listening to it. So I'll be in San Antonio in about 2 weeks. So I'll be hitting the track there. So I'll definitely be listening to the show in about 2 weeks. So everybody go listen to that episode of Making the Cut. For me personally, this is the thing with Vince, man. I thought his matches sucked. All right. I thought there were great moments in some of his matches, but I thought the matches themselves sucked. As a character, I almost stopped watching wrestling in 1999 because of how bad I thought WWF TV was. It's also why Austin isn't in my top 10 as well. All right, and I love Austin. It was so painful, and I thought Vince was so painful, and I thought Triple H was so painful, and it was painful to revisit when I was working on the yearbook project. And it was all so cringeworthy to me, man. I just couldn't take it. So I understand it was a very popular, profitable time in company history. It's also one of the times I despise most in wrestling. And I give him no credit for being a character on my TV that I wish didn't exist. I like the stuff in 97, the Bret Hart betrayal, some of the Austin stuff in 98. I thought he wore out his welcome, I couldn't stand being on TV week after week with his stupid family, and I hate all of his family, and I hope none of them show up on TV ever again.
One of my favorite things. One of my favorite things.
I know, it sucks. It sucks. It takes me out of the stupid product, man. I hate it.
When you were nominating people, and like people would nominate other people back in May, and if you didn't agree with it, you'd put the little sad emoticon. I don't know if you remember that. I would always laugh at that. And right now, if I had the sad emoticon, I'd be throwing it into your house like a grenade.
That's cool, man. Why don't you go in there and throw a sad emoticon on Mark Henry or some shit, man? Jerry Lawler. It made me feel good.
Now, see, I think if they had blown off that character at WrestleMania in '99, and then maybe brought him back when Hogan came back and did that feud, I would think about Vince a lot higher than I do.
I think maybe you're right. Yeah.
I mean, just think about those vignettes leading into the '99 Rumble where he's training, chasing the chicken and lifting weights, and I hate Austin. All that shit is great. But then you get into Vince loves cock, and you get into the stuff with Bret later on.
Fucking, what was it? Lesbian action.
No, see, if you can't, he didn't do the HLA shit. That was Bischoff. If you can't, if you're not counting the 2010 for, when are you okay, whatever? It's a fucking clarification on your incorrect point, Matt.
No, you know what it was? You know what it was? And I fucking hated it then, and I hate it now, and I think it's embarrassing to be a wrestling fan because of the Kiss My Ass Club. Fuck that shit. It was garbage. Fuck him. He's 10 points lower on my non-list. Fuck Vince McMahon.
You didn't like him wearing Jim Ross's hat and dancing around the ring like he was on a horse?
Hated him fucking... Always fucking Jim Ross up, man.
Oh, boo-hoo, Jim Ross crew. Jim Ross is a prick, too. Listen, I mean, if you're going to not count the 2010 stuff for Bret, I don't see how you can count it for Vince when he was, that was like a coda to his character, too. But, okay, Vince loves cock, yes, that sucks. But there's still some good matches in that run. And I just think his matches generally delivered. I mean, I know Will thinks Jerry Lawler versus Aldo Montoya on Superstars in March of '95 was fucking 4.5 stars, but I think most of...
Hey, I only gave that 3 1/4, thank you. I do have some critical thinking skills.
And that was an actual match that happened. Sadly, that's in my mind somewhere.
No shit?
Yeah. You should watch it. It was the build-up to the Kiss My Foot match. So anyway...
That kicked ass.
No, I just think he always delivered in the big moments of big match, and he sold and he showed ass. And again, Aaron and I covered him in great detail. I think he's legitimately, we mentioned Shawn '97 as one of the top 2 or 3 WWF heel runs of all time. I'd say Vince '98, '99 is the other one that's up there with him. So to me, if you're an elite person with a run like that, and one of the greatest promo men of all time, which he is, and one of the greatest characters of all time in company history, which he is, and has many good matches to his credit, which, whether you want to say it's him, or the Dog and Pony Show, or the horse hockey, or the cock and ball, whatever the fuck term you want to use for the shit that they would throw out there to cover.
I don't call them good matches. That's the problem.
I know, but you have a functional disconnect from a lot of things on this list. So, I mean, that's another fucking topic for another day. That's not the story of this podcast. But to me, he has enough. And when you just factor in his all-time greatness as a character, as a promo, and with that initial heel run, and the matches he's had, and just everything that brings about him, I can't bring him lower. Like, I just look at it and I'm like, Bret was great, but he wasn't a better character or promo or had better moments than Vince in my mind. So yes, he's better at the nuts and bolts of wrestling, but no, he doesn't have the moments and the big time, promo skills and just the aura that Vince McMahon had. The aura he had during that run was amazing. I mean, it was just trash cascading whenever he'd come out in that 98, 99 run. It was just amazing.
I'm going to argue that Vince McMahon doesn't have any of that without Bret Hart.
I'm going to argue that Bret Hart doesn't get as big as he did without Vince McMahon at that point.
What, on TV? Well, I'm talking about on TV.
All right, he doesn't get that hot without, shaking Vince McMahon around in March of '97 and setting himself up as anti-authority, and then setting him up against Steve Austin. That's come on.
Better than anything Vince did in '99. Austin versus Bret, any series of matches, anything better than Vince ever did ever.
Bret was awesome in that, but that is 70-30 Steve Austin, and you know it.
Oh, no way, dude.
Yes.
Fucking Bret Hart had too many great matches, great performances to fucking say that was all Bret. But that was 50-50, baby.
70-30.
Look, shit. Vince McMahon beat God. Enough said.
Yeah, that was garbage too, man.
That promo in the church was not garbage.
Oh, that's epic when he spits the water like Triple H. Come on.
Okay. Exactly. -7 points for doing
that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, minus this, minus that. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Yeah. He knows. He talked to Triple H in the back. Drop him 75 spots.
So, yeah, fuck that. Yeah, no, that's probably true. I'd probably not 75, maybe like 7 points.
We're lucky that Finley never talked to Triple H because that might drop him to the fucking 30s.
Well, hold on. Wait a minute. William Regal, being Triple H's friend, knocked him out of my top 20.
Being Triple H's fuckboy is what he was.
You know, so I mean, yeah, there is some truth, just not to the degree of which you're making it sound. You know, I mean, and here's the thing, man. I don't love the Attitude Era. I don't like the Attitude Era. It was that Attitude Era peak of like late '98, '99. I almost stopped watching wrestling again. And if I would have done that, I would have never bootlegged DVDs. I would have never met the Place to Be Nation guys. I would have never met any of you guys. It would have happened. I almost didn't meet any of you guys because I hated wrestling so much in '99 because of the crap Vince was doing on WWF TV and the crap that was happening on WCW TV at the time. I almost quit watching wrestling. But I didn't discover the internet and foreign wrestling and old tape traders. Will would have been done with wrestling for good.
I'm kind of wishing that happened now.
Really? Really? You fucking motherfucker. We made TV. We made fucking TV.
70-30. It was 70-30.
Bitch.
All right, who's next?
All I know is I got the... Shut up. It's my show. I got the last line on that episode. My mind is blown. It became a fucking gif. We're good. Let's move on. All right. Aaron, talk about Vince's arch nemesis, Steve Austin.
Whoa, okay. Contender for number one for me. I don't know. What can you say about Steve Austin? He excels in every single category that we are looking at for this thing. His jump up moments are crazy. He's probably the second most over guy they've ever had, I would say, behind Hogan. He completely turned the company around with Vince McMahon at a point where
50-50.
they were no 70-30. But no, and in like so many great matches, so many great moments. Whether you like the Attitude Era or not, like he still had great matches during that period. He did have some weaker stuff too, but the highs are so high. I would also venture to say his 2001 is just phenomenal. At a point where he was clearly nearing the end of his career. Tremendous promo, tremendous character. I mean, I'm just going to keep lavishing praise on him. I love Steve Austin, so like I'd rather counter points than talk any more about his positives.
All right, that's awesome. What about you, JT?
Yeah, I pretty much agree with Aaron. Fucking shock. But I definitely have him in my top 5 and definitely a number 1 contender. And for all the reasons Aaron said, I mean, he's got the matches, he's got the moments. I think of some of his greatest work, you know, the Over the Edge match with Mick Foley, the 2 Bret Hart matches, and I even argue that third one, well, they had 4, but the one on Raw where he injures Bret is awesome too. It's kind of a forgotten gem of
Street fight?
Yeah, the street fight where he has him the sharpshooter for like 10 minutes or whatever and injures him. He's got the match with Shawn at King of the Ring 97, just all those work rate matches before his neck blew out. Even the Owen SummerSlam match was great until he gets hurt. And then he comes back and completely reinvents himself as a brawler and does it fantastically too. You know, like he's a work rate guy, still kind of the Stunning Steve for a bit there, gets hurt, comes back, and now he's just an all-time classic brawler. And then, like Aaron mentioned, that 01 run is just next level for until his neck just blows out again and just betrays him. Promo skills through the roof, character through the roof, connection, charisma, nuance, everything through the roof. He's got the matches, he's got the work rate, he's got everything you could possibly want. You know, he does have a little bit more downtime, you know, some in there in 99 at times, but he was pretty much great from the get-go. Even the feud with Savio Vega, so good. You know,
he's strong.
Yeah, so it's like, he's just. He's iconic. You know, he became a wrestling icon in that role, in that gimmick. He was a guy that went from, you know, Stunning Steve would have been like on a list like this toward the bottom, you know, but really good technician, good hand, had flashes, but he was one of those rare guys that was able to cash in on that potential and make himself into a megastar.
All right, Steve?
Yeah, I pretty much echo what these guys said. He's my number 3 right now. He was a guy who just ran on all cylinders, even until the very end. I say he probably started to fall off right at the very end of 2001. Then 2002, just a throwaway year for him, just not good at all.
Right.
But everything up to that point in his WWF career was just fantastic stuff. Something that gets overlooked with Steve Austin is just how funny he was sometimes. Mm-hmm. He was this big, badass, money-making promo guy, but then he would just throw in these random-ass funny things like telling Paul Bearer to spit the cupcake out and tell Austin he got a title shot against Kane. Just all this silly shit that he could get away with because he was that good and that entertaining as a character. Steve Austin, also a personal favorite moment of mine. February 1998, I go to a house show, 16 years old, shave my head, buy an Austin 316 shirt, and I have a sign that says, Stone Cold is my dad, child support 316.
Oh, that's awesome.
Steve Austin making his way to the ring, goes up the steps, looks me dead in the eye, shakes his head almost in a disapproving manner, and then carries on with his life. Up until the moment I entered a lady, 6 months later, it was the best moment of my young life.
The fuck
That's
is wrong
hilarious.
With you? Entered a lady.
JT, everything is wrong with me, okay?
Lost your virginity.
Entered a lady.
I'm keeping it PG-13, boys.
Well, here's the deal, and I'm going to be the outlier again.
How is that PG-13? That's worse. If you just had had sex as normal.
All right, are y'all there?
Yeah, we're here.
We're still on entered a lady. That's the problem.
One point. Just one point to cap off what Steve said. He mentioned Austin, falls apart at the end of 01, 02 is a waste. But then amazingly he comes back and has one of the best matches of his run at WrestleMania 19 with him and Rock, which I think, I know I'm like abnormally off on the 17 match, but 19 for me is right there with 17 in the Austin Rock canon. That match is fantastic and it still holds up. And for him to come back and lay it all on the line in his last match, and a guy that's never come back, and such a fantastic way to go out for that career. I think that adds to his legacy that he looked so cooked the year before, comes back and delivers that match.
Especially when you consider that he was hospitalized the night before.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's insane that he put in such a good performance.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that. That's cool. All right. So I got Austin at number 18 on my list. Okay. And here's why, man.
I'm really regretting
I
doing
love the
this
stuff with Bret in 96. Okay. I love the stuff after the two-man power trip that he was doing with the Canadians. I didn't love the invasion stuff. Okay, that was happening. I didn't love anything from the Attitude Era. Like after that Rock feud, that. I liked the Rock, the very first Rock Mania match, and the Rock Backlash match from 1999. But that was about it. Didn't like anything else he did for the rest of the year. Didn't really. I mean, I know like his stuff in '98 with like the Survivor Series stuff getting screwed over by Foley, or not Foley. Was it Foley? It was
Shane.
Right?
Well, he's fighting Foley, but it was Shane. Who
Yeah. Is like stuff that people who like the Attitude Era, they like that stuff. They like his feuds throughout the summer with Kane and Undertaker. I didn't care for any of that crap. For me, none of that stuff is important. Like, it's not good stuff. It's not stuff that I think fondly of, I have good memories of. For me, the great memories are the Austin Bret matches. It's that hot run in 97, like building up that Stone Cold character, giving those Stone Cold stunners to Sergeant Slaughter and to Vince and those guys. It's the Canadian Stampede feud during that summer. It's the tag team with Foley, the tag team with Michaels. All that stuff is hot for me. It's the Rock series, iconic stuff, great stuff. But when such a bulk of your career, and the most successful part of his career, is in the Attitude Era, an era that I absolutely despise, I just can't put you in my top 10. And that's another value thing, man. I don't value that stuff. I don't consider the drawing power. I don't, you know what I mean? Like, JT agrees with that. We're not considering drawing. So how much money it drew is irrelevant to me if I don't like it, if I don't like what's going on. So I don't give Austin credit for that stuff because he's making a shitload of money on stuff I can't stand, on Jerry Springer garbage. That almost made me quit watching wrestling. So,
but even though you couldn't stand it, you can't argue that it wasn't successful.
I didn't say it wasn't successful.
Right.
It's just not what I want to see. It's not what I want to invest my entertainment time and money in.
Wants to see Jerry Lawler eat his own foot.
Like if we're looking at wrestling, but see, even then, I thought that was garbage too. I thought the matches and I've even said this, like, hey, man, I went back and we watched some Attitude Era matches to see what Mark Henry was doing and Goldust and these other guys. Man, I thought Austin had some really great TV moments that were absolutely ruined by Vince Russo during that time. You know, and I just said that like 3 or 4 months ago. Like, I thought Vince Russo ruined some potentially great TV matches and moments by existing, you know.
Like, which ones do you mean?
Well, one was an Austin versus Goldust match that happened that was getting really hot, and then fucking Vince Russo bullshit run-ins. And I mean, there was almost always run-ins in his matches. Or there was like extended matches with like Triple H and Taker and Kane and Big Show and stuff during that era. Just like, I hated all those guys on top, you know. And corporate ministry garbage. Hated all that stuff, you know. So for me, like, I liked his Angle feud, you know, like that. Did they have the RVD 3-way? Is that something that happened? Right?
Yep. I love it.
That's really good. Yeah.
You know, but then look at like when Hogan and Rock, you know, got thrown in the spotlight. You know, Scott Hall and Austin have a shit show at Mania. I don't even blame Austin for that, but he was being a bitch, right? He was being a little bitch, crying because he had to work with Scott Hall and had a shit show to show for it. Or, you know, whatever.
So, but my question to you,
hey, let's prove these assholes wrong. We can both work or we can both go. He cried like a little bitch, and you know. And so for me, no, I acknowledge he's successful. I love watching Steve Austin. Like, I love this guy. But him and Rock are the two like Attitude Era guys, and they're at my list at 17 and 18. You know.
But with all those great things you did mention for him, right? Like all the great matches and everything, how can you have him 5 spots behind Mark Henry?
Because they almost single-handedly made me want to stop watching wrestling.
I mean, Mark Henry wasn't ruined by Vince Russo storylines at all.
He was, and he reinvented himself.
Steve Austin invented it. But, no, this is...
Right.
And I want to caveat this before we get rid of... Hang on. Before we get destroyed on Twitter for shit we didn't say. This is not ripping on Mark Henry.
No. I'm not shitting on Mark Henry, but like...
We are not shitting on Mark Henry.
I love Mark Henry. I'd fuck him, all right? I'd fuck him right in the ass, okay?
Sweet Jesus, a penis.
Yeah.
You would enter in Mark Henry.
The first time I entered a Mark Henry. But, like, yeah, like, it just seems like he has all these amazing things, and, like, anyway, I guess it's just, you just value
right,
that.
Aaron. But then I listed, like, all these things that I didn't like the 2-man power trip. Hated it. I thought it was actively bad television. I thought they were bad matches up until the leg tear match with the Canadians. You know, I actively hated that.
Would you have things with Henry that you hate?
Not hate, just kind of like, that's boring or whatever. No, man. Mark Henry, like, once again, emotional connection. Like, man, like, even during the Attitude Era, like, I watched Mark Henry's, like, not the matches aren't good because it's ruined by Vince Russo stuff, but it's like the movements in the ring. It's like, it's what I want out of wrestling until the Vince Russo shit happens. That doesn't always happen with Austin, with a lot of the people he's working with, man. Ugh, you know, the Canes and I'm sure Mark Henry's had some really shitty Kane matches. Did him and Kane ever feud? That has to have been a bad feud because Kane's horrible.
It was Hall of Pain that happened.
Yeah,
those are probably the only bad Mark Henry matches.
Right, it had to be Kane or Triple H. That's it.
Had to have been. You know, it's very logical that
him and Jerry Lawler at Mind Games '96 was 5.5.
God, I got to rewatch that. Was that good? I think that.
No, it wasn't good. It was not good at all.
I'll have to rewatch that, man. That sounds exciting. So anyway, having said that, dude, I like Steve Austin. He's in my top 20.
I don't think you even have a top 10. I feel like your list starts at 13 with Mark Henry, and that's it.
No, it's just that's as far as we got. Dude, we already talked about Bret Hart. I told you number 8. God.
All right, who's next?
My number 1 is Macho Man fucking Randy Savage.
Hey, me too.
Fuck.
There you go. We're in agreement.
You know, I mean, dude, there's some powerful hitters in my top 10, man.
All right, who's next? Who's next?
Shut up, man. I'm fucking talking about Steve Austin. Anyway, fuck him. Fucking white Peter. Anyway, all right. Next, I think we're all going to agree on this guy is like an awesome wrestler. He is in my top 4. Okay. I might make him number 1 just for the fuck of it. Anyway, I'm talking about Daniel Bryan. JT, where's Daniel Bryan on your list, and what did you think of his run?
His run was awesome. I have him at 13, so pretty high. He didn't have quite enough. Like he has some really good stuff before he blew up, and then his run just ends. Like it just ends, And like his last real moments are like that Kane feud, which is just. But his run from Team Hell No until WrestleMania 30 is like an all-timer. Obviously one of the best in-ring guys. Tremendous promo. The crowd connection through the roof. Just really, I mean, you talk about the emotional connection. WrestleMania 30 is one of the greatest WWF moments of all time. With that, and there's not much arguing where he belongs. I just think, if you're looking at an all-time list of everywhere, he'd be higher for me. I just think there's other guys that have better WWF resumes, just slightly more than him. But, I mean, 13 for a guy that really, when you talk about he had a peak run of, 18 months? You know what I mean? Like to me, that speaks volumes about how good those 18 months really were. And some of the guys he was working with and had to deal with and was carrying. But, yeah, I mean, he's got what you need to have him this high.
Steve?
Yeah, I echo those sentiments. Just not enough longevity for me to rank him tippy top. He's probably in my top 25. The best stuff was phenomenal, but I think there just wasn't enough of it to put him in my top 10. That being said, we've been shitting on Kane fairly regularly. That is my absolute favorite Kane run, was with Team Hell No. And the 6 months before that was my least favorite of Kane's run. So this says a lot about Bryan as a performer, and really that's the only reason he is in my top 25, was that it speaks volumes to his value that he was able to elevate Kane so high. I just wish that we would have got probably another year of that good stuff.
All right, and Aaron?
Yeah, I snuck him in at, he's 98.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Now you know how we feel, asshole.
No. I mean, it's as ridiculous as Henry at 13, but let's
and we like Mark Henry. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
We're not shitting on Mark Henry. We're not shitting on Mark Henry.
We never did, but they said we did. We never did. We never did.
No, he's in my teens, all the same reasons. I think that, I mean, look, it's all been said, he's a tremendous wrestler. I'm toying with him somewhere between 13 and 17. He'll be somewhere in there. He's one of the guys I'm really reevaluating. At his peak, as over as almost anybody, that moment at 30 is amazing. I like, too, that he was having, really solid matches with guys that don't have a long – he had a really solid match with Ted DiBiase Jr., and that takes some talent. I liked his match at SummerSlam 11 with Wade Barrett as well, which I don't really like Barrett that much. These aren't classics, but it's just it just pads the resume that he has the classics, and then he has these ones under him. I love the Sheamus match, the 2 out of 3 falls match. I think that's just one of the
amazing.
One of the best matches of that year. And I mean, I love Sheamus too, so they'd both be pretty high. But, again, to echo, I wish he had more time. If he had more time, he'd have a chance at cracking my top 10.
Yeah, I got him in number 4. Here's the deal, man. We talk about emotional investment.
Talk about emotional investment.
Of course I do. It's one of the intangibles. Fuck you. It's one of the intangibles, and it's one that I put higher than anything else on your fucking shit NJWP list, okay? I'm just going to say that right now. Not yours. It's not your list. It's fucking Parv's or Chad's or fucking some Brad's. I don't know, somebody's list. Whatever.
Let's sort out who we're shitting on, okay?
Yeah, figure it out. Yeah. It's not Mark Henry. That's all I know.
Who came up with that NJPW shit?
It was a collaboration.
Who was it?
I mean, it's better than any system that puts Finley above Shawn Michaels, but go ahead.
Not true. It's not true.
Mark Henry
anyway.
Steve Austin.
Fuck yeah, he deserves it.
Yeah.
Haven't said that. Here's why I got Bryan at number 4. From the minute he came in, all right? I mean, he was fucking curtain jerking shows, doing opening matches on pay-per-views. And there's this stretch of 2 or 3 or 4 shows, man, where his match in the opening match was like better than any other match on the show. And then he just kind of floated around doing that Bella stuff, before he actually was really doing Bella stuff, but it was just like TV Bella stuff. And then just 2011, man, just blows up with that Money in the Bank win, that the feud with what's his name, Big Show, and it was Big Show, Mark Henry, and
that's a great match,
having like awesome matches.
Yeah,
just awesome feud.
Royal Rumble, they have a three-way cage match.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
The cage match, yeah,
awesome match. Yeah, exactly. But everything that led up to that was awesome. Even like, didn't Daniel Bryan cash his Money in the Bank after like Henry and Show had a match, right?
Yeah, Big Show won. He finally won the title.
Yeah. And so to me, that whole period, I mean, these are people that, Mark Henry and Big Show had been kind of floundering, and Daniel Bryan, like nobody gave him like a real shot. Man, we're putting on amazing TV at the time. Just amazing TV at the time. Just completely had me locked in. All the TV matches he had. I always say Rey Mysterio, and my buddy Dylan, he actually said this, that Rey Mysterio might be the best television worker in WWE history. Daniel Bryan's pretty close because, man, it's almost like he consistently had a good to great match on TV every single week.
Sometimes
and I saw
more than
some
one.
of them live.
Sometimes more than one in a night.
Oh, because I was there live in Austin when he took on who did he start off with? I think it was. He started off with somebody, then it led into Cesaro, and then led into Ryback.
And you wonder
was
why
it Jack
broke
Swagger?
Down. Yeah.
It was Jack Swagger to Cesaro to Ryback?
Sounds right.
Y'all remember that?
Good enough. Yep.
I think that's it, yeah.
Amazing to watch live. Saw him have a TV match with Cena that was amazing live. Then he has the Cena pay-per-view match that was amazing. I mean, he just in and out week after week kept me hooked, one, on something I'd kind of given up on when they botched the Punk shit, and always produced. And it was TLC 2012 or 13. I don't know whichever one it was. What was 2013? Yeah, 2013, right? Or 14. TLC 2013 in Houston. He has that handicap match against the Wyatts. Awesome live. Awesome to watch live, man. Really good. Just no matter, and the only person to ever get like a great match out of Bray Wyatt. Every time you put him in the ring, regardless of what the circumstances were, as an opening card guy, mid card guy, main eventer, tag. I mean, dude, he single-handedly gave Kane a good run in his 25-year WWE career and shit. Single-handedly made Kane good for like 3 months and shit. Fucking did that. Plus, all the great matches, the consistency, the great moments, the yes chant, all that shit added up, man. My number 4 guy on my list.
The Kane argument is compelling. I mean that's like legit. That's not even a joke.
It's all legit, man. It's all legit.
Not everything, but that is that
night in, night out, having the best card or best match on a card, regardless of placement.
But that's what Hacksaw Jim Duggan did in the 80s too. So.
Oh, Hacksaw Jim Duggan was fucking amazing.
He's number 7.
Hacksaw's on my list. Maybe 7.
Mine too.
I'll have to look. Jim Duggan was an amazing wrestler, especially before he came to WWE. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Let's go to someone we've been talking about. We alluded to him earlier in the show. We're going to allude to him now. I'm talking about John Cena. And John Cena is kind of like, to me, one of those Mount Rushmore guys, man. I got him super high. Always, when I remember who said something, I'm always going to credit them with saying it. But it was either Charles or Dylan who said that, like, John Cena is like the best big match performer in WWE history. Like, when you put John Cena in like a big match, I'm not talking about like a shit match with like John Morrison and Truth, or something, or a match with like Vince McMahon who sucks. I'm talking about like a legitimately great wrestler, or even just a okay wrestler. John Cena usually comes out of it with a good match. Just a big time wrestler. I've seen several like before Randy Orton, John Cena just kind of like became passe. Like they had like really good matches early on. Then at that same TLC pay-per-view, I really enjoyed their title unification match. John Cena for me is one of those guys where if he's wrestling somebody on a card, I'm going to say, okay, I got to check out the Cena match. Doesn't always pay off. Isn't always good. Not saying that whatsoever. But for me, I'm going to make sure that I watch that John Cena match because it could be good, it could be bad, but sometimes, man, it's transcendental in how great it can be. And we've seen that numerous times. We've seen it with like the Punk matches. We've seen it with the first Brock match. We've seen it with the first Rock match. I thought was amazingly great watching it live. We've seen it so many times throughout his career that you say John Cena's on the card, a John Cena AJ Styles, which is like one of the few super highlights from the last couple of years. I'm gonna make sure I watch it, man. Just, somebody I'll defend as a great wrestler, until the day that I stop watching wrestling. So anyway, I got him at number 5. So what about you, Steve?
John Cena is my number 1 right now.
Awesome.
He is, among those top level
fucking Canadian rapists. Anyway, go.
Among the top level WWE face of the company kind of guys, he's got tenure, he's got longevity, and put on as good of performances as he did for so long, and then was willing to move down the card and continue to put on good performances. He had that great U.S. title run in 2015. When did Hogan have a great Intercontinental title run? That shit never happened. John Cena is...
Because he was too big for it.
I'm sorry, I don't remember John Cena making Mr. Nanny. Anyway.
He's not good enough for it.
Anything less would be too civilized.
Hey, fuck that. John Cena made the Marine and shit, right?
John Cena is now making legitimately decent to good movies. I just saw a trailer for his next movie coming out called Blockers. If you haven't seen that, check that shit out. That looks hilarious.
Because you haven't seen Muppets in Space.
Good, man? Because, hey, I like that great Muppet Caper, man. Legitimately great movie.
Space is funny, and Hogan's pretty good in it. He's brief.
As far as his low runs, I'd say 2008. He had the great moment coming back at the Rumble, but then the rest of the year was either injuries or kind of so-so plotting stuff. But outside of that, I think probably 75% of his run has been good to great. He's, without a doubt, my number 1.
Oh, man, I'm not even going to dispute that, man. That was good. Although you did forget the Umaga match. And I was there live for that, too. Royal Rumble 2007. Holy shit.
Fantastic.
Single-handedly, John Cena single-handedly got Umaga on my top 100. All right, so JT.
John Cena. He is in my top 5. I think he is like the last man of kind of the icon group for me. Just because I think of the 5 kind of pillars in my mind of WWE history, he's just lagging a bit in some metrics. He is a great wrestler, but I don't see how you can sit here and dog other guys for having like blah TV matches or shit. Like, he has a bunch of those too. Like, and he has stretches because he's overexposed. And this, in a way, I'm trying to defend my point from earlier by using him as an example to say, guys in this era are so overexposed to so many matches, the bulk and the volume. He's not going to have great matches all the time, and he doesn't. So to hold it against a guy like a Shawn or whatever, and then prop Cena up, when they kind of have the same trajectory when it comes to like the volume of TV matches and whatnot, I don't think it's completely fair. But Cena does have great stuff. The Umaga match is to me, a 5-star, obviously one of the best matches, if not the best match of the 2000s WWE, I guess maybe all time. Yes, the IC title run was great. His stuff with Kevin Owens I really liked. The match with The Rock, the first one, of course, epic.
The second one sucked, man.
Yeah, second one sucked, sadly.
But nothing's going to follow that Punk Taker match.
No, and then speaking of Punk, obviously great series with Punk, great match with Daniel Bryan at 13. And that's a classic. His stuff with Edge and Randy Orton, the Orton stuff, your mileage may vary. His Edge feud was great. It helped elevate Edge. Yeah. Cena 07 is great. I mean, that may be one of the best years. It's probably his best year and maybe one of the best years.
Great match with great Khali, or at least a very good match.
Right, very good match.
I mean, the only person who could never say that, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yes, yep. So yeah, I agree with Steve. 08, and I think even 09 is spotty for him. He's got some fun stuff in there with like Big Show or whatever, but yeah. And then I think he's hit or miss here and there for a few of those years. Like, you know, the JBL was poopy. Was that 08? I guess that was 08. But you know, even like I guess 10, he's got some of the Batista stuff, but Batista carried it. I thought a lot of that. I think he did sag, and then he kind of reinvented himself.
Promo-wise, but I thought the match was really fun to watch and really good.
Yeah, and then he's got the shit with Kane. What was that? Was that 2012 with the ambulance and Zack Ryder?
Where he emasculated Zack Ryder?
Yeah, like all that stuff. Like, I mean, that's shit like people criticize.
You can't blame. I never judge anybody, not even Triple H and that Katie Vick bullshit. I never blame. Well, no, actually, I do blame Triple H for that. Fuck him. But like, I don't ever blame like bad Kane matches.
Yeah, like, but Cena was like actively. It wasn't even the Kane part of it. He was actively burying Zack Ryder with all that. I mean, he basically cuckolded him with Eve. It's like, I mean, like if Hogan did that, like it would be. Everyone would be shitting on it. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't good. It's not a prime moment for Cena. And then he's got all the Johnny Ace stuff. Like Johnny Ace was funny, but that whole stretch with Tensai and all that, like that shit's crap. So I mean, he has stretches of crap in there, but he also completely turned himself around into the indie dream worker, match worker John Cena, starting in 2015. Owens, AJ Styles, Seth Rollins, like all that stuff. The match with Brock and Rollins at the 15 Rumble is tremendous. And we didn't even mention the Brock matches. I mean, the Extreme Rules 12 was awesome.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you did.
That first Brock match I said was transcendent.
Yeah. That one, and then even the one with the SummerSlam 14 where Brock just murders him. It's like who had ever seen a guy like, a main event guy take a shit kicking like that, like John Cena did. I think the biggest criticism, and you can blame the booking if you want for this, but it's his inability to continuously sell bad shit that happens to him. He's always he's almost too cartoony in that way, where he's back the next week, and like everything's okay.
Yes.
Like the Nexus gets him fired. That's a dramatic storyline. 2 weeks later, he's back. Ho, ho, ho! I'm back. Like that part of it. It reminds me of, I did improv in college, and one of the things I always hated was when someone didn't go with what you were, the story you set up, that they didn't like it and would change it. Like, buy in. And to me, Cena was always that guy that doesn't always buy into what someone else is setting up. Like, instead of letting the story play out or the promo play out, he's always quick to like just shit on it and cut it down. And I think that's a big criticism of Triple H too, and I think it should apply to Cena. Like, he's a great guy on the stick when he wants to be, but think of how he's got just as many shit raw promos as like Triple H did in those years of 2000. Just like, I mean, there's so many stretches where he'd come out and the promos I cringeworthy, I roll, whatever the fuck, it's late. But he also, what makes it more frustrating is when he wants to be on and turn it on, like the stuff with The Miz last year was fucking awesome because he can do it when he wants to. And to me, that's what keeps him from being like a number one, is that he does have nights off with that shit where he does go through the motions. He does have a lot of that stuff. And again, the biggest thing to me is the non-continuous selling and the bouncing right back and, eating seat on the floor. He comes in and wins the match. And, and again, some of it's booking, but some of it's the way he handles it too. So great guy, top 5, but he's not the elite 1, 2, 3, 4, so he's not my number 5. But he's just not in that top guy because of those little deficiencies.
Aaron.
Okay, allow me to preface this by saying I have John Cena at number 8. So before anyone says I'm a hater, he's high. I have him at the very end of my top tier. And I'm not going to say he doesn't have great matches. I'm not going to say he's not talented and stuff like this. But the reason I don't think he can be number 1 and as I find that there's just kind of jumping on something JT was saying, but like there's just too many instances where I find he does stuff which takes me out of the match, and kind of like how you're talking about Shawn, but to me exposes the business. Like I find that his character in general is not a positive character to have on any show. Not that he's not a good wrestler, but like the very basis of drama or anything is character working towards objective, right? And if you look at him, he's just an aimless character. Nothing affects him. Nothing bothers him. If someone beats the shit out of him, fine. It's kind of talking about like that. There's never an instance where he shows vulnerability. And he's the poster child for WWE's insistence on a writing style, and in like a dramatic writing, you'll get dinged if your script tells us stuff instead of shows us stuff.
Right.
So what he'll do is they'll spend a year telling us, wow, John Cena's had the worst year of his life. right? But in that worst year, he's so happy, he's cutting promos, but then the next week, it's like, oh yeah, this year's been really rough for me. He doesn't have the ability to show vulnerability, which is certainly a cardinal sin for a top babyface, because babyfaces are based on sympathy. Like even Austin, who was a murderer, and a killer, had vulnerability. He would still get tied up in the ropes. He would still get the shit kicked out of him. It would still work. Hogan, he'd be breaking down crying because Andre ripped the cross off his neck. Cena would be laughing that off. And I don't think it's a surprise that I don't think he ever succeeded as the top babyface, because I don't think he succeeded as a top babyface in terms of being a face. He was never accepted by, I'd say now is probably the most he's been accepted by the crowd, right? Like his whole top run, he's fighting half the audience every single night.
And it's not like because he got diminished, is that everyone loved him all of a sudden. You know what I mean? It's like
like that, to me, that's a failure as a top face. Like that he lost and was not able to ever maintain the majority of the fan base. Like that.
I see where you're coming from. That I just want to say real quick. To me, that's a systemic failure of WWE's system. And what I mean by that is that, with the exception of Daniel Bryan, who I have higher than Cena, there really isn't somebody who is able to kind of defeat that system. Like even now, nobody's moving the needle. You can say AJ Styles, but he's not really moving the needle. He's not generating anything outside of the people who already watch wrestling or invested in it. No, it's not capturing the imagination of anybody.
I'm not saying that he did.
Systemic failure of the WWE system. I'm not going to blame all of that. See, because we're seeing it with Roman Reigns, who we're going to talk about in a minute. Same thing, right? This inability to say, hey, maybe it's time to switch to do a heel turn with this guy to give him a little bit more depth or to freshen him up or whatever. I mean, they fought that crowd until it became part of the storyline, and Cena just accepted, hey, half of them hate me.
Yeah, but there's things he could have done to change it. It's the exact same criticism I have with Triple H. If you want to get over as a babyface, I think you need to show sympathy. I think that's one of the number one things, and he just never did. And I'm sure it's not the company. Maybe I'm wrong.
Are you sure about that? Because I think that might have been a direct directive, because we're seeing the same thing with Roman Reigns. I mean, I think it's almost a directive this is how I expect my top babyface to act.
Right,
and
but
this is what template I want you to follow, and fucking crowd response be damned.
Yeah, but it's a response of making Reigns Cena. That's why you have it now, is because now they thrive off that dual again, I'm hypothesizing, I could be wrong, but I get the impression they thrive off that dual reaction now. Because there's so many guys that aren't over.
Because they don't know how to get a guy over, so they have to rely on that. They love it because it's a reaction.
And to me, that's just
now
in the system, not in the even then, I've been watching John Cena live for over 10 years, right? And I just say, going to live shows and shit, there's nobody that generates as much interest and excitement and buzz in any arena I've ever been in when he's been on the show than him. Not one, not Punk, not Bryan, not Whitney, no.
I would not necessarily disagree with you, but I question the overall impact he's had on the product. And you could talk about how it's maybe the systemic nature of it and stuff. I think Cena broke the system. I think whether it was him or whether it was a combination of him and the company, the system was broken because of him, and now they're reacting to that system. But that being said, regardless or not of if it was his fault or the company's fault,
definitely the company's fault. Go.
But I would argue it's shared because there were things he could do to adapt, and he certainly has enough power. If we're going to ding guys, people ding guys like Hogan for not going away at a certain time and stuff like that. You got to kind of blame Cena too for not adjusting on some level. And I don't think he has to necessarily adjust to the point where he turns heel. That's not what I mean. But going out after that match with Brock Lesnar and being oh, guys, I think I'm hurt bad. I might be gone for a while. Then the next night jumping around like it's nothing. Those are the things that kill the credibility in the product. And if we look at his matches, again, he's got lots of great matches, right? but he's got some major deficiencies in those matches. Like for me, like if you watch a Shawn Michaels match, for instance, I know you're going to say it's a performance, or even a guy like Hogan, who even towards the end of his career, this was a thing. As the match goes on, and this is such a small thing, but to me it's indicative. As the match goes on, the kickouts get different. The more he gets beat up. Cena, same kickout every time. Yeah. No matter where he is in the match, that arm jets up like it's a rocket. And it doesn't make any sense. Like if he's getting beat up, these things have to matter. The match with AJ Styles, like at the beginning of the year, like watching it again, I was like, wow, like the first time I watched it, I was like, oh man, I want to give this 5 stars. But I can't get over the fact that like he's just taken like 2 Styles clashes, and now he's jumping around and running across the ring with Styles on his back and fine. And to me, one of the more egregious examples is that first match with Kevin Owens. Like, great match. Owens pins him clean, 1, 2, 3. If you watch it back, within a second, he rolls out of the ring like he's fine. And it's like, what am I watching here? Like there are guys that have made their career on kind of no selling and stuff like that, but that's been more part of their gimmick. Like to me, there's a sloppiness to it that I can't get past. And love him, got him at number 8. I like him now. He actually drove me away from the product for a while. I didn't watch for about 3 years and had to go back and watch because of him. And I know there's lots of people.
Which 3 years were those?
I stopped probably late 06 and I got back late 08. Okay. 2 years.
I stopped watching it until 09 because of the Benoit murder. So I mean.
Oh yeah. See, I was fine with the murder. That didn't bother me at all. But John Cena not selling drove me insane. And like, you know, like again, this I don't find his fault. Like I get crediting him for doing that U.S. title run, but of course he's going to be diminished. He's been on top for by that point, he had been on top for 10 years. Which is way longer than Hogan, way longer than Austin, way longer than anyone. So it's like that's what they kind of had to do with him. And he's also at a point now too, and I mean this has been like this for a while, but he's a vortex where characters kind of go to die for the most part. Like there are people that there are people that have great matches with him, but I don't know if there's really anybody aside from maybe Daniel Bryan, but that was one match, who come out of feuds with him better than how they went in.
Right, and then he started that ridiculous template, too, where he'd lose the first match and then win the next 2, like, over and over. You know, Rusev, Wyatt, Owens. I mean, you can go down the list.
The Rusev feud, outcomes notwithstanding, was amazing. I love that feud, man. In ring wise.
Yeah, like it and that was a good one. You're right, but again, it's a bunch of little things. So like, please don't take this as I think he sucks, because I don't clearly. But like that's why I don't think he's got any business cracking number 1. That's just me, you know. And then you throw in the promos and everything you guys have said too. Like that's my take on Cena.
No, man. I mean, you know what? I'm not even going to argue with anything you said, man. I think some of the criticisms I think are a little harsh. But others I think are very valid. And so, like, one of my biggest Cena hating moments was in that Nexus 15-man or 20-man or whatever it was.
Yeah, with the DDT on the floor. Yeah.
Fucking killed me, man.
Terrible.
Fucking killed me. One of the worst spots ever.
Killed the Nexus, too.
Well, I don't know if that spot itself killed the Nexus, but just the idea of somebody, I mean, man, I grew up, I watched fucking Jake the Snake drop Ricky Steamboat on the concrete. You know what I mean? Ricky Steamboat was out for months after his shit, you know, had that fucking bandage on his nose and shit. Cena got up right away. It just fucking floored me, man. I said, come on, you know? And I blame Cena for that. I blame the fucking company for allowing something like that to happen, period.
Well,
drop
did you
something
hear
on concrete and let him jump up.
There was an explanation to that. Like, I don't know if you ever heard, but like Edge and Jericho were talking about it on a podcast once. And they both went to him and were like, apparently this is their story, and we're like, you shouldn't do this finish. And he was like, no, it's good. This is the finish I want to do. So I'd put that on him.
He could have definitely said no.
No, dude, I'm not justifying him for that shit. I think it was stupid. And if I was the guy giving him the DDT, I'd say, no, I'm not giving him that DDT. I'm not killing Jake the Snake's finisher. I mean, something stupid like that, right? I mean, the DDT.
Yeah, well, I don't think fucking Darren Young had the stroke, whoever it was, had the stroke to go in there and say he's not doing a fucking move to John Cena.
Fuck you, Vince. I'm not doing that finish.
Yeah, okay.
Protect the business. Protect the business.
You think that Darren Young would have more respect for Black John Cena?
Oh, Christ.
He looks exactly like him.
He does.
Exactly like him.
He does.
But with all that said, man, I mean, it is to this day one of the things that irks me. And there are things that irk me about John Cena, you know, and this is like weighing that negative and positive, right? You know, to me, when I look at someone like, you know, someone I shit on a lot, you know, I'm not going to say Triple H and Kane. I'm going to say Randy Orton. Okay. Because Randy Orton, I like a lot of his matches. Randy Orton's not on my list because for the amount of garbage that Randy Orton has, like, I mean, just the most recent example I can think of, and I'm sure because I don't watch the product a lot. I guess it would be the Jinder Mahal stuff, but even before that was that Bray Wyatt match at WrestleMania, like absolutely one of the worst matches ever, right? You know, for the amount of garbage Randy Orton has, and like the similar career trajectory, right? Like they both kind of entered at the same time and have both kind of been around forever, right? Okay. Randy Orton, it's like, dude, just leave. And then when he left for a year, it still didn't feel like long enough, or 6 months or whatever it was. However long he was gone, it wasn't nearly long enough, right? When Randy Orton left. Whereas like when Cena's gone for a little bit, it's like, man, I miss Cena. That's just me, you know, how I feel. So when I weigh like all the negatives in Randy Orton's career with the positives, those negatives kind of overwhelm those positives. Whereas no matter, and justifiably so. I mean, Aaron, I agree with a lot of your points. Anything you put negative, all those positives consume and devour those negatives because of so many great moments, so many great matches, so many great angles that, you know, to me, you know, Cena is in that upper echelon. And like when I look at Undertaker, it's like a lot of horrible, shitty stuff that doesn't quite overtake the good stuff, but he doesn't have any of that great stuff, or I'd even say transcendent, like Cena, that, you know, consumes that bad stuff. I don't know if that makes sense, but it does in my head, so I'm running with it.
No, it makes sense. And to me, that's why I have him in the top 10.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Clearly, the great stuff is there. It just, for me to put him ahead of the other guys would be dishonest from what I think of him. You know.
Well, that's cool, man. That's cool. So let's move on to someone else. Now, Aaron and JT, I know you talked about him on one of your podcasts. So I just want to kind of get an idea of where you're ranking them, but I want to get Steve's take. And my buddy Dylan's not on this show, but he had said in the past,
thank
like,
God it would be 7 hours instead of 3.
Yeah. Oh, no shit. It would have been 7 hours for sure. He said that this guy is probably just as detrimental to the business as anybody else that he's seen because of the way he's booked and the way he wrestles. And that's Brock Lesnar. Whereas for me, Brock Lesnar is another one of those guys where when you combine his 2002 run, was it 2002 to 2004, right?
Yes.
Okay. Combine that with like that reemergence after the UFC. I got him in my top 40, man, because I love a big Brock Lesnar match. And I think there was a lull in there where it was just like, man, you know, Lesnar's relying on this garbage too much. But then he does something like with Goldberg at WrestleMania where they like wrestle 5 minutes and it's the best thing on the show. You know, he has that garbage with Triple H, and I blame 100% of that on Triple H, you know. But then he has like an amazing match with CM Punk, you know, like he had amazing matches with Roman Reigns, which to me, I would argue, to this day is the best WrestleMania main event, you know. So for me, Brock Lesnar, those transcendental moments, those moments that kind of elevate greatness, like he has them in spades. And plus, I've kind of really enjoyed a lot of the stuff I've seen from him, you know. Like was it the Samoa Joe match? Like, a lot of people don't like the result of it. I really liked the way it was fought. This AJ style match that just happened kind of propped Brock up in my eyes. So I'm a big fan of Brock, man. I don't think top 40 is absurd at all. What about you, Steve?
No, I agree. And on the show we did with Dylan, he had, to his credit, turned something around I said about Shane McMahon being a 40-year-old millionaire who comes in a few times a year and goes 50-50 with these guys. And he said, well, I wasn't paying attention, but I do agree with everything you just said about Brock Lesnar. It's something that I kind of kicked myself later. Something that Brock Lesnar brings to the table that Shane McMahon does not is the aura when he's at his best of it being all of a sudden a lot more legitimate and there being a real big fight feel, as they like to say. I do agree there's a low. I'd say everything after that Roman Reigns WrestleMania match up until the Goldberg series was just kind of throwaway for me. Laziness, just suplexes, and nothing else. But then this Goldberg series happened. I thought that was good. And he's had some good sprints this year with Joe, and then that four-way Godzilla monster fight they had at SummerSlam this year was amazing.
That was awesome. Yep.
And then just recently the match with AJ Styles at Survivor Series was, I think, Brock's best match since the Cena Extreme Rules match 5 years ago. When he's motivated, he's still one of the best in the world. I think that it's a bit misleading to, in his case.
Hold on, man, because you said they did a lot of nothing. Dude, that Undertaker, we were talking about Undertaker. I thought Undertaker was toast until he did that series with Brock. That after the shitty WrestleMania match, that was 100% Taker's fault. After that, when they did that one where the ring was torn up and
all three, the Cell, the Hell in a Cell, the SummerSlam. There might have been one more too.
Those were awesome.
Yeah, for some reason the Taker series is kind of hazy for me. Maybe something I need to go back and rewatch. I'll give you that. I think it's a bit disingenuous to hold the schedule against him just because that's the whole character. He's this prize fighter who only wants to fight for money, who only shows up if it's a big deal and is not overstaying his welcome for the most part. That being said, I think it is, if he were to disappear after WrestleMania 2018, I think that would be perfect. I think he has given just about all he can give at this point. He's probably, just due to the long period of inactivity, probably going to be in the middle of my list, somewhere around 50.
Okay, that's cool. And JT, Aaron, where did y'all have him?
I had him at 11, and you can hear more about it if we were making the cut. I'm leaving
awesome.
it at that.
I'm at 10. So yeah.
Wow, y'all had him that high. Okay, no, that's awesome. I got him at 32. That's where I got him, and part of it's just because of that huge gap in between, where he's fighting UFC. I don't consider anything he did in UFC
Yeah, but that almost makes him more. That makes it better, right? He doesn't compile all that shit on TV that we've been bitching about for everyone else, right?
Yeah.
He went away and he came back, and then he was limited.
Oh, that's true, man. I mean, dude, I got Ron Garvin on my list for fucking a 3-month feud with fucking Greg Valentine. Come on. It was one of my favorite WWF feuds of all time. So, whatever. Having said all that, no, I actually don't blame someone like Dylan for his criticisms, but man, I just think Brock has so many amazing big time moments. He just feels important. So I think he needs to be up on the list.
I think if you took for me, I think I made this point on making the cut, but if you just took a snapshot of him, to me, he seems like he might be one of the best people who's ever the best at pro wrestling that anybody's he's so good at every little thing that makes a pro wrestler great.
Well, that's a good point. You know what, man? When you take his second run with Taker and his first run prior to leaving for football and UFC, he's probably Undertaker's best opponent. I think it's better than the Shawn stuff. I think it's better than the Mankind stuff. Definitely better than Kane and Triple H. So, I think Brock might be Taker's premier opponent. The one guy who kind of matches Taker in that aura,
I don't know. I factor Shawn's first run with Taker too.
I do too. I do too, and I like. See, I like that first Brock Taker Hell in the Cell more than I like the Shawn Taker Hell in the Cell, and I like that run that they had, that short run that they had, leading up to it more than I like that run that like just what was the show? I don't know what the show was in 2003 that led up to the Hell in the Cell, the one that had like the unsatisfying finish. But I like that match better than
it was Unforgiven in 2002.
Yeah, that one. I like that better than I like the Ground Zero match that led into Bad Blood or whatever, or whatever. So
I'm sorry, I zoned out. You're talking about that.
No, he's comparing the two because they followed similar track, right? Ground Zero and Unforgiven, they both did a crazy brawl, then ended with a fuck finish, and then they went to the Cell the next month.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So either way, man. I mean, that's just going to be like we were talking about earlier. What we went out, like, to me, two big dudes beating the shit out of each other is going to be better than like Shawn Michaels flying around running away from Taker, which I like that too. Don't get me wrong. It's just I prefer one more than the other. So okay, guys, let's go to our final wrestler of the night. We all have to go to bed, work in the morning, so I think we're going to wrap this up. But I'm really interested to see what your take is on this guy, because this is another guy that, you got people that love him, think he's a great wrestler, and people who just despise everything he stands for, within the corporate WWE mold or whatever. And I'm talking about Roman Reigns. And we're going to start with you, Aaron. Your take on Roman Reigns.
Roman Reigns makes me not want to watch wrestling in a lot of ways. I don't hate him, though. Like, what I don't like about him is I find he's just the most generic wrestler I've ever seen. From his music to his gear to his the way he cuts promos and the things he says. I think he's quite good in ring. Let me preface that. I have him. He's around 40 on my list, so I have him moderately high. He falls into the same category as Cena, and it's not his fault, but like he just doesn't quite click with everyone on what he's attempting to accomplish. He's got a lot of great matches. I love his Shield run. I think he's tremendous in that. I do love the Brock WrestleMania 31 match. I don't think I'd agree that it's the greatest main event, but I love it. I think it's great. I love his AJ Styles series. And I find lately, the last year or so, I've liked a lot of his stuff more. I do think he's got a lot of cons, though, in his matches. I would say up until the last year, I found his Raw and when he was on SmackDown matches to be very lacking. Like a lot of just lazy like punches and kicks, and that's about it compared to the pay-per-views. Now, I'm not saying we should get pay-per-view quality matches every Raw. That's not what I mean. But it felt like he was being a bit lazy there. I don't like when he disappears in matches and naps for long periods of time. That kind of drives me crazy.
He's selling, man. It's extended selling. Come on.
Yeah, I would like to see it though. I feel like he's just lying there. I thought his Mania main event with Triple H was terrible. But that I blame Triple H for that too.
And the booking. I mean, they should have never booked to go that long.
It should have been a 2-second match. Should have just destroyed him. I did not enjoy his Taker match last year. I really didn't like the feud with Owens last year. I never liked his feud with Rollins. I didn't like his feud with Wyatt. So like, there's a lot of kind of cons there for me. I think his promos are pretty bad. When he's natural, he's a little bit better. But that being said, his promo the night after WrestleMania this year, that one word was brilliant, and the way he handled it was brilliant. So like, to me, he's such a mixed bag. Like, he's like the personification of everything I hate about the company. Like, in terms of like, this is going to be the guy whether you want him to or not, when there's other people here. But that being said, I can't deny that there is a certain greatness to him. I just wish I'd like to see more personality from him. I'd like to see him not just look like another guy. I mean, I think I made this point before. I think the biggest mistake they made, as much as I like that Lesnar match, I think that was the wrong time. Like, I think he needed to – I think he should have beaten Rusev at that WrestleMania and been the one to end that streak and then the next year crown him.
Or if you want to push it and you want him to go, just give him the belt, right? The Rollins thing is what really fucked him, because that set them back, and they had to completely rebuild and re-engineer him, and then
absolutely.
Then they got him back over at the end with the Sheamus stuff where he goes to win the title in the tournament and everything else, and then they fuck him out of that, in the Rumble. It's like any time they've started to get momentum with him, they've shot him in the foot. And you could say political hit or whatever else you want, but there is, but it's true. There is something to it where. They want him to be the guy, but any fucking time he's like about to get over, they do something to back off, They
didn't set him up well. Like when they broke up the Shield. Not at all. Like it was weird because you had this act that as an act was a main event act, right? But then when you broke up the Shield, you put two guys in the mid card, and then you put Reigns in the main event, but there was no justification for him to suddenly be in the main event. There was no reason for that. He should have been in the same position as the other guys. But all of a sudden, we were supposed to believe he is here and these guys are down here. And so he floundered at first. There was nothing for him to do. Then he got hurt. And then he came back and he, killed himself with these promos that he was cutting. Like, there's a promo he cuts at Survivor Series 2014, via satellite or whatever, and it's just terrible. Then he shows up at the NXT show the next month, and it's just brutal. So you're right that they've kind of cut the legs out from under him a lot, but I think he hasn't helped himself enough either.
Mm. Well, we talked earlier about Austin with potential, and I feel like Reigns has the potential. You just wonder if he'll get the chance to put it together and figure it out, because it does seem like he's getting better. Like, his TV matches have really improved. I would argue that next to Cena and AJ Styles, I'm trying to think of who else maybe is on the list, but is he the greatest big match guy they have right now? I feel like his big matches have all pretty much delivered. I was live, so I'm not really the best person to talk about the Taker Reigns match. I didn't mind it live. I could have probably rewatched it. I haven't. I thought Reigns killed himself and busted his ass to carry a completely broken down and withered Undertaker through that match.
Absolutely. Completely worthless wrestler who doesn't deserve to be in the top 50. I agree.
Completely yeoman's work there by Reigns. I thought the matches with Sheamus at the end of 15 were really good. I thought he definitely, when he beat Ambrose for the title, and then they have Sheamus cash in on him, it's ugh, all right. And then he beat Sheamus, and then that next night on Raw where he just destroys, everyone and wins the title back, and all that, he was getting over again, then they fuck him at the Rumble, and it's just over and over. But I thought his matches with AJ, really helped reestablish him. That helped him get it back on track, and I think he's been really good since then.
They're just obsessed with crowning him at Mania.
Right.
For whatever reason, it's got to happen there, and it's just always the wrong timing.
Right. You're right. He's been hot in the fall or summer multiple times, and they just want to keep holding off. But he, his promos are good when I compare him to Batista in a way, when he's scripted and face and whatever, blah, the Looney Tunes shit or whatever. But when they let him just be himself, this arrogant douche, because that's what he is. Look at him. He's got the fucking beautiful blue cat eyes. He's got the long, hair. So it's he's a good looking dude. And take the fucking vest off him. Show his goddamn arms and chest for the women or whatever or the guys, whoever. But fucking expose him. He's
I thought the reason they kept it on there was because he had a hard time maintaining the physique because he likes to eat like a Samoan.
Then wear a fucking Undertaker singlet thing, but at least show, he's got a nice upper body. He's just buried in this gear that doesn't make sense anymore. He's not. Well, I guess now he's a Shield again, but he wasn't for years. Get new music, get a new look, refresh him a bit. I'm not saying he's got to come out there in tiny trunks, but they give him something. And but no, I feel like he has improved. And when they let him just be himself and cut promos and be an asshole and be smarmy with the fans and give the fuck you, I'm still awesome no matter what you're thinking, fat boy. Yeah, basically the Batista stuff that he did as a heel, right? It's along the same lines. If they let him do that, I think he gets over more. And the shooting in the foot all started with the 15 Rumble, and I've said it ad nauseum, them having Daniel Bryan be in that match submarine Roman Reigns completely. They should have left him out of that match altogether. And then you have Reigns beat him, which just pissed everyone off even more. They set him up to completely fail from the start with that. And then, like Aaron says, they just keep trying to force feed him into these Mania moments that just don't need to exist. Right. But I have him in the low 30s because I think he is a great big match worker. I think he has all the Shield stuff on his resume, which are all great.
All the Shield stuff is huge because when you see what he did after the Shield and what the other two did, I don't even have the other two on my list, man. I couldn't do it.
I have them, but they're very
singles run so much.
I have them, but they're low. They're low. No one. They're not even close to Reigns. But yeah,
I actively hate Rollins. I actively hate him as a singles wrestler. I like their tag run now. I think Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins should never stop tagging ever again. They need to bring the tag team back and just keep it. And never go to singles run again, because both of them had horrendous singles runs that made me embarrassed to like the Shield. Whereas Reigns, I really like the singles stuff.
So anyway, that's where I have Reigns.
It's just funny too, because he's the first guy that they've built around that was not organically chosen by the fans.
Right.
Like even Cena originally was chosen by the fans.
Right.
And he's kind of the only one, and he doesn't have the same qualities that all those other guys had. Like, I think you might even be able to argue that he might end up being a better worker than some of those guys, but he doesn't have that same presence or charisma that those guys have.
You know, it's something that happened off camera, I think, that worked against him pretty badly. Was you had mentioned the crowd turning against him a bit around the time of Survivor Series of 2014. The other thing that happened around that time was the CM Punk podcast thing, where he had mentioned after being away for a year that the one directive he was given in going against the Shield 1-on-3 was to keep Roman strong. They just kept reiterating that. So your smart mark types picked up on that and started a bit of a wave that led into Daniel Bryan coming back early and cutting him off again. And then just one shit thing after another for the next 2 years, to the point where they finally decided to go with him, and he pops for fucking Adderall or whatever it was, and they have to take the belt off of him and start all over again. It's a never
hold
treadmill with
on.
this guy.
Hold on, my man Roman got popped for Adderall?
Yeah.
Yeah, wellness. That's why they lost. He dropped the strap to Rollins, and then Rollins dropped it to Ambrose right away, and then the next day they announced a wellness violation.
Oh, wow, man.
The injury in 14 hurt him, too.
Can y'all give me some Adderall? Can you give me some Canadian Adderall? That'd be cool.
I could. Just send me some cash.
Right.
But then I'm staying at your house when I deliver it, so that's happening.
Oh, okay. Interesting. All right. Oh, man, sorry. I didn't mean to be making drug deals on the air. All right. Steve, your take on my man, Roman Reigns.
You guys pretty much hit every point there was to hit on Roman Reigns. If he makes my list, he's going to be bottom.
Wait, stop. What do you mean if he makes your list?
I just don't know, man. To me, he hasn't succeeded in the role he's been put in as a top singles guy for any amount of consistent time. Like Aaron said, he's lazy at times. I get the appeal, but you've had all this talk of emotional investment. I am not emotionally invested in Roman Reigns. I don't think he's bad. I think he's perfectly competent, but he's not possibly top 100 WWE of all time in my eyes.
Oh, he's easily top 100, man. I got freaking Earthquake in my top 100. Roman Reigns is easily better than Earthquake.
He's 102 right behind Fit Finlay.
What?
Finley's not even in my 110.
Yeah, Finley's not even on my.
I bet y'all have Triple H on your list too, right? You pieces of shit.
Hey, all I know is I once ate at a Chipotle that Triple H had once eaten at, and you replaced me on the show with Bariqua. So.
What? Oh, did I replace you with Bariqua on one of our shows?
It's all good, man. I had to work, but it's late,
and then
man.
Steve cut off the power to the whole island as revenge.
All right.
Can't do it.
Well, let's run down. Steve, fuck your list, dude. Don't have fucking Finley on your list. Fuck off. Anyway, so here's my top 10, right? Okay. And I'll just give you an idea. This is what I value in wrestling. And this is what I value in this company over the course of this project and all the years I've been watching, like over 3 decades of watching this company, right? Okay. And so number 10, I have Goldust, which I talked about. Greg Valentine's my number 9. To me, Greg Valentine is part of 2 of my single favorite feuds. And, I mean, never mind the consistency and greatness he did when he was a wrestler, but just 2 of my greatest feuds ever in WWF history, especially the Tito feud, which is a contender for number 1 feud, and then the Ron Garvin feud. Number 8, Bret Hart, who we talked about. Number 7, CM Punk. I don't know if I was ever emotionally invested more in wrestling than I was after Punk cut that pipe bomb and then won the belt in Chicago. I've told that story before. Number 6, Bob Backlund. Number 5, John Cena. Number 4, Daniel Bryan. Number 3, Eddie Guerrero. Number 2, Macho Man Randy Savage. And number 1, Rey Mysterio. And that's my top 10. And I'm sticking with it. And I'll have any of those guys top 10 over Steve Austin, The Rock, Bruno, Roman Reigns, Kane, Triple H, any of them, any day of the week. So anyone else want to give their top 10 before we head out?
No, I'm saving mine for later. Aaron and I are doing the post shows.
We're going to do a reveal or something.
I don't have a 10 yet. All I have is a top 5. That would be 5, Randy Savage, 4, Bruno, 3, Steve Austin, 2, Hogan, and number 1, John Cena.
All right, cool. Well, guys, I hope everybody out there enjoyed listening to the For Your Consideration series. I had a blast talking to old podcast partners, getting to talk to guys who I'd never talked on the air with before as co-hosts, like Aaron and Steve. Earlier on this year, we reunited the Titans. That was a real blast. Met some neat people from all over the world, like Stacy from Australia. Did a few shows with Glenn Butler, who was a super guy. I just talked to so many people. Steve mentioned Barriqua earlier, Johnny Sarl. We had a great time doing this, and sorry it took so long to get this last episode out, but I hope you enjoyed all. What was it, 14 episodes? Is that what we did? I hope everyone out there enjoyed all 14 episodes. If you haven't heard any of the previous episodes, go back in the archives and check those out. In the meantime, keep an ear out for Aaron and JT's podcast. And y'all said y'all are going to do a reveal show. Is that like the next podcast, or y'all going to do some more of the
no, I think we're done. Yeah, I think we're done probably with the Make of the Co. We had a couple more planned, but I think we covered pretty much everyone tonight. So this ended up being kind of our last show. But yeah, we're going to do, I think a bunch of people are doing reveal shows come January, February timeframe when we start rolling the list out. But for now, you got a couple more weeks. Get your ballots in.
Excellent. I'm going to send my ballot in about 2 minutes, man. So I'm amped up, man. So anyway, I hope everybody really did enjoy listening to these shows, and I appreciate all of you. So until next time, you're listening to Place to Be Nation. Adios.
Vote.
In case you forgot or fell off, I'm still hot, knock your shell off. My money stacked fat, plus I can't turn the swell off. The franchise doing big business, I live this, it's automatic. I win this, so you hear those horns, you finish. A soldier, and I stay under you fighting. Plus I'm storming on you chumps like I'm thunder and lightning. Ain't no way you breaking me, kid. I'm harder than nails, plus I keep it on lock like I'm